Our story begins with a gentle night breeze under a half-hidden moonlight. We meet our main protagonist, Leon, who receives compliments on his good work. Leon kneels and looks up at the voice that compliments him, thanking the respected Sir Daruth Robert. Daruth glares at our hero with a stone-cold expression. He comments on the fitting performance of the protagonist as the Shadow Chief and commends that it is because of him that the family has been growing in power faster. Leon humbly expresses that he has just been doing what he should have, but in a slight change of tone, Daruth asks him if he thinks the Shadow needs freedom. And following this question, our hero answers that the Shadows are not capable of questioning anything that has been commanded to them, and are to only follow the orders given to them by their masters. But just then, our hero is startled when Daruth questions why he had acted on his own when he knew of this rule. Leon is taken back by the extreme pressure and tense situation. As Daruth asks why he had undone the brainwashing, he glares at Leon as he kneels before him, wondering how Daruth has come to know of this. We are then enlightened about what brainwashing actually is. It is the method that the Robert family uses to control their assassination organization, Shadow. It is elaborated that they buy or kidnap children and make them work as assassins their entire lives for the sake of the Robert family, engaging in all kinds of wicked activities. And our hero continues to narrate that, simply put, they groom the children into becoming their loyal dogs. However, he coincidentally was able to break free from these chains. Wondering how the man is able to confront him, he asks Daruth how he knows. Daruth then explains that he and the other assassins have two collars. One is for brainwashing, and he snaps his fingers to reveal the second collar. And just then, our hero feels a sudden intense pain in his chest. He bleeds from his mouth and continues to wail in agony and excruciating pain. He grabs hold of his chest firmly and wonders what kind of pain this is, expressing it to be as if his heart is being sawed in half. A dark red aura surrounds Leon as he glares upon the torturer in front of him, and Daruth explains it to be the rage worm. He explains that there is an insect in his body that eats away at his heart upon his command. And this is the worst kind of enchantment that there is, allowing them to look into the emotions of the slave. Leon is startled and dazed in anger as he calls out at the sickening act, and he yells at Daruth, questioning if brainwashing them wasn't enough that they had to feed them rage worms too. However, contradicts the fair and righteous comment as he tells himself to be thorough, and he elaborates that there is a saying that every person wears a mask. He continues to tell that his mask just happens to be thicker than others. This is when we get to know about the backstory of our hero. Leon says that he was kidnapped at an age he does not remember, and he was raised as the Robert family's hunting dog. He expresses that he was the head of the Shadow and lived his life without any emotions or a mind of his own. He continues that coincidentally he was able to learn a breathing technique called the Fire's Ring, and to prove that this was the divine skill of the best swordsman. He broke free from the brainwashing, but he expresses that he thought he would be met with freedom. Yet he wonders why he has had to meet with death instead. He dwells into deep despair as he questions his life and wonders what kind of sins he has committed to die such a meaningless death. However, just then something flares up his spirit and he picks himself up, gritting his teeth and determined that this cannot end like this. He stands up, startling and surprising Daruth, who asks how he can even stand up in such a state. Leon's eyes glow and he glares at his opponent, preparing himself to attack. He is determined to take his arm or even just inflict a small injury. Our hero bravely leaps forward and approaches his torturer, screaming in full spirit and fury, expressing he won't just die so pathetically. Daruth sees the wrath of the slave approaching him, and he immediately raises his arm to counter. He slashes through our hero's body in just an instant. In the blink of an eye, we see our hero's body cut through with a sharp cutting slash, blood sputtering out and his head rolling over on the ground as his eyes fill with emptiness. Daruth stands before the corpse of the dead slave as he contemplates that he thought he had prevented everything. But he is surprised that the slave has undone the brainwashing and even attacked him through the pain of the rage worm. He then makes his leave and notices a small cut on his hand, wondering when was the last time he was injured. He's annoyed at being bitten by his own disposable hunting dog. Other assassins and caretakers make their way instantly to the scene as Daruth calls them to take care of the mess. Just then, we see that our hero has not yet given up, his eyes still glaring at the torturer, stepping away in disgust. He contemplates the fact that Daruth is the strongest and there was no way he would have won against him. Our hero dwells in despair and hopelessness as he slowly lets go, thinking that there is nothing that he could have done. But just before he gives up, the realization dawns upon him and he contemplates his regrets, expressing that he is upset about living a life without a reason, being humiliated and manipulated all his life, and that he cannot complete the Fire's Ring. He calls out desperately, exclaiming that he does not care if he fights a devil or a god. He wants to get revenge no matter what. That's when a charm starts to glow right beside him. A system window opens up and displays that he's been chosen by rage and his body will now be possessed. But then the system window turns red, expressing that the body of the vessel has died, and chaotically displays an error on the screen. In a change of setting, we are brought to a sunny and bright field where birds are chirping and the sun shines brightly. A woman's voice holds a toy in her hand as she calls for someone named Sunny to look at her, and a baby's voice echoes as he reaches out his hands at the woman, calling her mama. The woman asks the baby what he thinks the toy is, and the baby mutters the words for his baba. The woman is in awe of the child and picks him up, holding him close to her chest. But the baby appears to be somewhat annoyed. The baby expresses that he still cannot get used to this, and the voice of our hero once again narrates, telling us that the woman cuddling him is Sylvia. He continues to tell us that it is still hard to believe, while Sylvia holds him up in the air and playfully asks him to try and say mom. Leon states that it is still hard to believe that he has been reincarnated as a woman's child. With all the memories of his past life as an assassin, he first thought that he had been dreaming and sleeping for the past 100 days, and he did not wake up from a dream, no matter how much he slept. So he accepted the fact that he has been reborn. Sylvia holds Leon in her arms as she mentions that the weather is good today, and she wishes for the Patriarch to be back home soon so he can give him a handsome name. Leon gazes over at the woman holding him and points out that she can't keep calling him Sonny forever. But in other news, he also mentions that the Patriarch must be busy since he has not shown his face in the past 100 days. He also tells us that he could not figure out too much after reincarnating, but he acknowledges that he has been reborn into a wealthy and renowned family, expressing that it's better to be born into a powerful family than a normal one. And he adds that he needs to get his revenge after all, expressing that the rage and desire for revenge are still prominent in his mind. But still he gets a hold of himself and acknowledges that he must be patient because he does not know where this is, what the position of this family is, or what kind of situation he is in right now. Adding to his contemplation, he recalls that he was unable to complete the fire's ring in his past life, so he needs to be patient. He was called the best assassin in Robert family's history, and so in order to enact revenge, he needs to swallow his emotions for as long as it takes. Our baby hero is curious, gazing upon the luxurious mansion, wondering if this family is more than renowned. But just then, his attention is diverted to a panicking voice that calls out to Sylvia, yelling out loud that the Patriarch has arrived. When Sylvia is dazed upon hearing that her father is coming, Leon speculates that the Patriarch is his grandfather. She exclaims that she needs to prepare for his arrival, but the maid tells her that it is too late and he is already here. The atmosphere changes in the room as Sylvia and the maid both stand in a daze, and Leon experiences this change as he questions the sudden tension in the atmosphere. A voice yells out to make it known that the Patriarch is entering. A gate opens as a man follows through with 2 guards accompanying him. Leon expresses that just the man's existence is overwhelming. A royal gown flutters in the air as the man steps into the room, making our young hero squeak in a baby voice. He speculates and acknowledges the man who has approached him, and Sylvia greets her father in respect. The man questions if the baby that Sylvia holds is his grandchild. This is when Leon realizes his identity. He points out the golden blonde hair of the man, the flame-like red eyes, and his ice-cold aura. He explains the man to be the zenith of this continent, the northern king of annihilation, Glenn Zehart. Our baby hero appears to be concerned and dazed as the Patriarch gazes upon his grandchild and wonders how the hell he got reincarnated into the most powerful family on the continent. Sylvia asks her father if he wants to hold his grandchild. All the while, our baby hero deems such a fate as ironic. Glenn, the esteemed Patriarch of the house, exclaims that the baby will be named Leon, suggesting that the meaning of the name is to live like a shadow, as if the warrior is there, but also not there. Leon's baby eyes widen at this statement. It's hard for him to process how he was given the same name as his past life. Night falls upon the land eventually, and moonlight shines through the room as Leon pretends to be soundly asleep in his crib, but actually he is wide awake and wondering if everyone else has gone to sleep. He sits up and contemplates the fact that after 100 days, he now finally has his chance. He elaborates that he was always sleepy. Every time he would wake up, Sylvia would always be by his side, ready to cuddle him up. That didn't allow him to use his mana. But now, finally, he is able to sleep in a separate crib. Sighing in satisfaction, he expresses that he should get started. He sits upright, crossing his legs to perform a certain stance, calling upon the fire ring ability. Our baby hero explains that this continent's normal training method uses breathing styles. One absorbs nature's energy and gathers the aura in the energy core. However, he adds that the fire rings he has obtained use a different path. Enlightening us about the workings, he elaborates that when a mage uses his energy, it shapes the heart's ring, growing his overall physical abilities and energy manipulation techniques. Because of this, he mentions that this type of breathing technique is the best to become a perfect martial artist. Moreover, this sort of breathing technique has the advantage over transcendents like Daruth who don't know its full capabilities. And so he expresses that by using the fire's ring, one can grow their mentality and body. He desires that if he can make the Zehart's swordsmanship his own, defeating and enacting revenge upon Daruth won't just be a dream. Analyzing himself, he is skeptical, but he points out that it's because of such a premature body filled with freezing energy that his body felt cold even after sleeping for more than 20 hours. He closes his eyes to analyze how many places are blocked. Realizing the number to be 9, he concludes that at this rate he is going to die due to his circuits being blocked by the cold. He knows that he needs to break through them using the fire's ring, but he expresses that throwing away such highly pure cold energy is a waste. although he questions if he can fuse it with the fire's flow and circulate it throughout. Some time has passed and our baby hero has concluded his training. Although he thinks that it is slow, he is still making very good progress. Just before he decides to move on to the next stage, he feels a bit agitated. He acknowledges that his body is tired, questioning the stamina of this premature body getting tired after such little training. But our poor baby can't help it, and he feels the weight of his eyes as he slowly closes them to sleep. Leon has soundly slept in his crib, and this is when Glenn, the Patriarch, emerges from the shadows to observe his grandchild. He raises his hand above Leon's head, and small sparkles of energy twinkle around him. Night changes into day, and the sun shines upon the window of the huge and luxurious mansion. The cutest protagonist, Leon, crawls on the floor, muttering nonsense, and Sylvia follows him throughout, encouraging him to crawl a little more while playfully squealing in joy. But Leon seems to be distressed and annoyed, expressing that playing with Sylvia is a pain. I mean, our dude has the mind of an adult, and playing and pretending to be a baby like this makes him want to kill himself. Sylvia, however, cannot have enough of cuddling with her child as she fiddles with him and calls him playful names. All the while, our poor hero gets more and more annoyed, exclaiming that enduring the cold energy is better than this. This goes on when suddenly Sylvia is called upon by a strange voice and her attention is diverted towards the man who calls for her. Her face immediately lights up as she turns to face the source of the voice and calls the person the Saint. The Saint takes a slight bow to pay his respects to the lady, or requests her to simply address him as Sir. Leon's eyes widen upon seeing the man. He wonders if the person in front of him is someone called the Saint of the Rags, and enlightening us with more background upon the characters. Our hero once again narrates that the Saint has divine power, medical techniques, and skills that can reach the ends of the world. However, he adds that although the man is the most famous physician, no one can see him due to his wanderlust. Coming up close, the Saint gazes upon the baby, expressing that he came to see Sylvia after hearing about his birth, and he picks up Leon to gaze upon him closely. He compliments the red eyes and the blonde hair of the baby that he inherited straight from his beautiful mother. He then asks the name of the child, and at first Sylvia hesitates to answer, but she says that the name of the child is Leon. The Saint is taken aback, questioning if they named the child while knowing that it means shadow. Sylvia hesitantly agrees with the speculation, and the Saint follows up with disappointment, not understanding what Glenn was thinking before naming the child. Leon observes his expressions as he notices that the two are being quite casual with each other. In his past life, he had heard rumors of the Northern King of Annihilation being friends with the Saint of Rags, and it seems to be true. Nevertheless, the Saint holds our baby hero firmly as he smiles in joy, wanting to have a closer look. He then places his hand over the baby's body, and a strange energy flows and glimmers over our hero. The Saint notices that there is something wrong, as is apparent by his facial expressions. Sylvia also notices this and asks the Saint about it, and the man tells her that the baby has the bitter cold curse. He gives back the baby for Sylvia to hold as he continues to elaborate that the baby's energy circuit has been blocked off by ice energy. If they treat him concurrently before his future checkups, he will not die. However, he also lets Sylvia know of the sorrowful fate that the baby will not live for a long time if he is left untreated. Sylvia's eyes widen in shock, and her voice starts to shake as she states that the Saint is lying. She does not believe this to be true. And just as the Saint tells her about writing a prescription to start the treatment, a voice calls out to interrupt him. The voice belongs to a maid who rushes forward to the Saint to tell him that the Patriarch is looking for him. The Saint lets her off, telling her that he will be there with the Patriarch once he is done with the conversation. But the maid insists that the Patriarch wants to see him right now. Accepting the call, the Saint hesitantly takes his leave, expressing that the Patriarch cannot get his timing right. Observing the situation, Leon thinks that knowing about the disease does not change anything, because as long as he can complete the fire ring on time, such a curse won't be an issue. This is when a teardrop falls onto his face, making him halt in his thoughts. Our baby hero gazes upon the crying face of Sylvia, who still believes it to be a lie. She sniffles and expresses that she cannot lose her child like this, and she refuses to accept that he is dying. Sniffling and silent tears turn into wails and screams of agonizing pain as Sylvia falls to the floor, firmly holding her baby. She promises that she is going to make it better, no matter the cost. She is still in denial that her child is sick with a deadly disease. Leon's eyes widen and his heart skips a beat. He wonders what this emotion is, and he expresses that his heart is aching. He sees himself observing the poor woman, telling himself that he does not wish to see this. Among the wails and the screams, Sylvia suddenly stops crying when her baby's hand touches her face to wipe off the tears. She gazes upon her baby closely with her eyes full of shock, and Leon reaches for her in an attempt to call for her until he manages to mutter the word mommy. Meanwhile, Glenn was busy engaging in a conversation with the Saint when suddenly a commotion rises from the other room, diverting their attention. The voices of the maid yell and call for Lady Sylvia to stop, and Glenn questions what the ruckus is all about. The maid follows after Sylvia as the yelling continues, and she warns her that the Patriarch is inside the room. The door breaks open and Sylvia barges into the room despite the maid's best efforts. She glares at the Patriarch while she huffs and puffs to catch her breath. The red eyes of the Patriarch, Glenn, glare at his daughter as he confronts her about the reason for this ruckus. He mentions the rude and unsightly behavior, demanding a suitable answer. But he stops mid-sentence when he sees his daughter kneeling before him on the floor with tears in her eyes, begging him to save her child. However, the Patriarch does not seem to be bothered as he sips away on his tea. Being persistent as she is, Sylvia exclaims that the Patriarch is well aware of the child's state and how much the child means to her. She repeatedly asks him to save him, but adding to the bleak, intense atmosphere, the Patriarch coldly questions why he would want to save someone who cannot contribute to the family. He expresses that the child is an example of how difficult a martial artist's life is. Sylvia continues to persuade the Patriarch as she mentions the child to be his grandson, but he is not fazed. The most he can do for the child is to give him the Zehart name, and he asks his daughter to be thankful that he is being generous even with such an offering. Of course, Sylvia's tears do not appear to stop as she wails and screams for her father. The cruel man then asks the guards to take her away, and the brutish men drag her out of the room. Sylvia's screams and wails can be well heard across the mansion as she desperately shouts at her father to save her child. The cries do not go unnoticed because the saint observes this commotion. He sighs in disappointment and calls the Patriarch stubborn. This is when, in a shocking turn of events, the saint questions what the Patriarch plans to do now when he has called him to look upon his grandson's condition. The Patriarch overlooks the confrontation and quietly sips on his tea, asking the saint to give the details. He continues to do so, saying that as Leon grows, the condition worsens with his age. But he emphasizes that thanks to the Patriarch's aura pushing out some of the cold air, he will be fine for a bit. However, the unforeseen situation dawns upon the Patriarch, as it is made known that his grandson will not be able to become a martial artist. Following the Patriarch's strange dilemma and behavior, the saint asks why he has named the child Shadow, expressing that there are many names that he could have chosen from. Interestingly, the Patriarch mentions that the name Liam does not just mean shadow. He continues to enlighten the saint as he mentions that 1,000 years ago it had another meaning too. At the break of dawn, as the sun shines down, we are brought into the setting of the mansion. As Sylvia holds down a spoon with some medicine, she encourages Leon to gulp down the medicine provided by the saint. Anticipating a speedy recovery, the maid and Sylvia both close their eyes, wishing the baby to be healed. They open their eyes at the sound of the baby squealing and reaching out his hand for his mother. Sylvia celebrates in joy along with the maid, happy that her son is healing and enduring. Helen agrees with the lady as she also adds that he must have understood their intentions. Holding her son firmly in her arms, Sylvia draws Leon closer as he contemplates feeling better. He notices the medicine to be the fire attribute medicine, which is creating more air to push out the cold air from his Mona circuits. Satisfied with the results of the medicine, Sylvia encourages and playfully asks if her son understands her intentions. Our baby hero nervously and hesitantly accepts taking in more medicine. Fast forwarding a couple of years, we are brought to a setting where our baby hero has grown. Here narrates to fill in the gaps for us. Leon says that he started training after taking the medicine and after achieving a groundbreaking first fire ring. 2 more years of training have passed, all grown up. Our baby hero is not so baby anymore. And he expresses the same emotion as he continues to narrate his daily routine from the last 2 years. After playing with Sylvia and Helen around nap time and midnight, he would always train. Even more time has passed since the start of his training. And now our hero is 5 years old. We see a grown-up Leon sitting upright on his bed. He smiles in satisfaction, and his system window appears in front of him, showing his achievements at such a young age. The window highlights that he has now finally achieved the second ring of fire. By this time, it is revealed that Leon has managed to create the toaster ring of fire. Leon observes and gazes upon the message window as he contemplates the factors of the 2-star ring of fire. He elaborates that at this stage, the flames revolve in cross-formation and his energy observation gets more sensitive. The deep contemplation and celebration are, however, interrupted by Helen, who calls for Leon, expressing that he is up early this morning. She asks if she can take his laundry, and Leon approves. He observes Helen work her way through his laundry as he realizes that she cannot see the message window appearing before him. And now we learn as Leon tells us that the message windows first started appearing when he obtained the 1-star fire ring. In a flashback, our hero narrates that he did not know what it was at first, but he soon realized it to be a comfortable status window that lets him check all of his stats. He also mentions Helen's strange reaction when he first started interacting with the window. He expresses that it was evident that the message was only available to him. Continuing the deep contemplation, Leon expresses that although he has now achieved the 2 stars, his low stamina and the bitter cold curse remain. He strokes his chin and points out that improving like this would not have been possible if not for the fire attribute medicine. Dwelling back on past events, he expresses that during these 5 years, Helen and Sylvia, along with everyone at the annex, have been looking after him diligently, taking care of him like a prince. Rubbing the back of his head, he believes all this prince's treatment must have had an influence on him as well. But it soon dawned upon him that he still has a lot of time left and he is only yet 5 years old. He then contemplates his condition, elaborating that the curse is a problem and so is the low stamina, which work together to get in his way if he tries to move even a little bit. However, in his past life, he was known as the best assassin on the continent and he had learned the greatest technique of the Ring of Fire. Our hero draws a ball of fire that revolves and hovers in his hands. He plans that once he completes the Ring of Fire using his past experiences, the weaknesses will soon be gone forever. He adds that upon learning the Zygarde's swordsmanship, he will be able to slay Daruth's neck. But as Daruth is one of the strongest transcendents on the continent, Leon knows that he won't be able to keep his mind stable if he goes insane from revenge. He concludes that even if it's slow, he needs to gain the power and finish him off when the opportunity arises. Just as our hero determines to train even harder, a voice calls at him, acknowledging that he is awake. He turns his attention towards the voice and finds his mother, reminding him that they have to go somewhere today and asking him to get changed so they can leave. Leon looks out the window and elaborates that the powers that maintain the balance of the continent are called the 5 demons and 6 emperors. As a cart travels across the stone road, our hero continues to explain that of those powers he has been born into the Zygarde family, which belongs to the 6 emperors. He adds that the emperors demonstrate a positive influence while the demons threaten the peace of the continent. He also explains that there are several other powers outside of these, and so there happens to be a judgment ceremony to determine if these powers are good or bad. The cart falls into the gates of an annex as Leon expresses that today is the Zygarde family's judgment ceremony. The gossiping mouths of the families that have already arrived at the ceremony echo throughout the hall as they chat and engage in meaningless conversation. The gossiping continues as they call out to other families and their sons. Just when there is talk about Sylvia and her son, it is seen that Sylvia walks into the hall with Leon holding her hand. The chatter in the hall rises as they call Sylvia an outcast. The cold faces of the families in the hall glare upon Sylvia as she walks in and observes the cutting eyes of the families that stand before her. As Leon walks along with his mother into the hall, the chatter continues and they point out at Leon gossiping about his height and the rumors of him being sick being true. There is refusal and denial in the words that cut through Sylvia's skin. She hears people questioning why the outcast's son is participating in the judgment ceremony. The people express their hatred as they exclaim that they did not want to see the two, for it drops the ceremony's standards. Leon notices the harsh words of the families from the direct line. He questions if there are some kinds of circumstances behind the words, but he immediately gets a hold of himself. He expresses that he does not care if they are talking ill of him. However, he is startled to hear the words of people calling his mother, Sylvia, shameless, hardening his facial expressions. Leon expresses anger and is infuriated at the harsh words being thrown at his mother. He quickly snaps back into reality when Sylvia calls for him. She tells him that it's okay and asks him to just look at his mom. Our hero bravely accepts and moves forward with his mother. And just then, a voice yells out to make it known that the Patriarch is entering. He contemplates the long time since he has seen his grandfather. As our hero gazes upon the shiny attire that the Patriarch holds as he walks up to his throne, the powerful presence of the Patriarch is known as he sits on the throne and the announcer yells out his name. Glenn acknowledges that everyone has arrived at the ceremony and Leon glares upon what is to happen next. The Patriarch's hand swishes and a giant sword appears before the people in the hall. Leon is taken aback in nervousness as he questions if it is the sword of judgment. And then the heavy voice of the Patriarch calls out for the judgment ceremony to begin. Glenn glances upon the audience when the announcer calls for the name of Burn Zygarde to begin the ceremony. Burn sits up enthusiastically at his call to be acknowledged. Leon observes Burn approach the stone sword and he explains that from the age of 4, the skull of the child begins to close up and from then on the child's mana ability remains stagnant. Loud and shining energy flares up around the hall atmosphere as Burn holds his hand upon the stone sword. Leon adds that this place is where the judgment ceremony takes place to determine the kid's mana ability. Green energy illuminates the hall and applause follows as the audience discusses and judges the light that is being emitted. They conclude it to be the wind ability of great quality and applaud the boy. The Patriarch also commends the great ability, commenting it to be an attribute well suited for a swordsman and encouraging the child to channel the wind forth. Next up, a boy from the vassal family of Rimin is announced to come forward and he sits up to acknowledge his call, observing and judging the different patterns and interactions. Leon concludes and explains that how far the light travels indicates the mana's purity, while the mana's attribute is determined by the sword's tip. He elaborates that this is how the Zygarde family determines their talent. He also observes the cheering and enthusiasm among the families as they applaud Runan for his ability, commending his family name and comparing him with Burnan. Leo notices that these people value their talent just as much as they value their life, and so he guesses that he won't be able to display good results. Although the Ring of Fire is on the 2-star levels, his mana circuits still have a lot of cold on them. But truth be told, such things don't really matter to our boy. Just in time, the announcer lastly calls for our hero, and he feels the intense glares and sights of disgust that the families portray at him. The Patriarch joins this sentiment, and Leon is called forward. Sylvia smiles and calls for her son to proceed, and Leon obeys. He knows that he does not anticipate extraordinary results. He just needs to find a man attribute that best suits this body. Sylvia guides Leon as she tells him to do the same as the other kids, and Leon listens. He steps forward and sighs nervously before placing his palm on the stone sword. Surprisingly, a loud golden light is emitted through the stone sword, and our hero's eyes widen at this sight. He wonders what this light represents. The light blinds his vision, and he instead sees a sight of a man standing in front of him. With demonic creatures observing from the side, he questions what all of this means. Demonic creatures glare viciously over the man standing in front of them, and Leon sits behind for cover as he witnesses this strange phenomenon. He wonders who the man is that stands in front of him. And before he could muster another thought, the man holds up a shining sword that glows brightly illuminates the sky. The man swings the sword with full force as he grips the handle firmly, and the sword strikes through the demonic creatures that approach him while wailing in agony. A loud blast follows right after, and Leon snaps back into reality to acknowledge the task at hand, the stone sword. Just as he glances over at the sword, he is taken aback to find out that the light that emitted has not even made it to the halfway mark. Laughter and hysteria follow right after as the families taunt Leon for his light reaching such a low point. Not to mention that it doesn't even have a color. The Patriarch remains silent, observing the unfortunate outcome of his grandson's ability. Sylvia approaches Leon to comfort her son and reassure him that he has done his best. The harsh words of the families cut like blades as they walk through the shame. They question if Leon is truly a descendant of the Ziggurat family and taunt him, suggesting that he might have only inherited the red eyes and blonde hair. The Patriarch observes the humiliating commotion and calls out for the laughter and hysteria to stop. Naturally, the people immediately quiet down in fear of the Patriarch's heavy voice. He calls off the ceremony and asks the families to return. One by one, all the families leave with their capable children. Shortly after, everyone leaves as the doors close shut behind them. Glenn sits on his throne in disappointment beside the stone sword towering high in the hall. He calls for his warrant, mentioning that it can't be helped for his grandson. He dwells in regret over the incident when suddenly the golden light shines and illuminates the hall once again. His eyes widen at the unforeseen sight. The golden light flares and blazes through the hall, forcing the Patriarch out of his throne to acknowledge the might of the light emitted from the stone sword. He recognizes this golden light. It's the signature aura of the Ziggurat family's first Patriarch, which displayed transcendental firepower that could melt even the flames of the demonic realm. Gazing upon the book to find enlightenment, Glenn, the Patriarch, elaborates on the golden mana and golden flames, mentioning it to be a one-time occurrence throughout the history of the Ziggurat. He reads of the mana of dense golden light, which is blindingly beautiful and radiantly shiny. This is when the realization dawns upon him, and he notices the golden flame-like light emitting from the stone sword to be the golden flame aura. His eyes widen at the shocking sight. At this point, all he could do was stand there in a daze. Nothing more and nothing less. Abruptly switching settings, we see our hero grow twofold since the last time we saw him. Once again, gazing upon the message window to take a glance at his stats. He reaches out his finger at the screen, wondering if it is time for him to reach the 3-star ring of fire already. Narrating over the scene, he tells us that 7 years have already passed since the judgment ceremony, and he has now turned 12 years old. He explains that with consistent training, he is now at the doorstep of reaching the 3 fire rings. His tolerance for water attributes has also risen to being 2 stars. So the coldness in his body has disappeared, improving since it first started, but still rendering our hero unable to move. Moving forward in the present, Leon plans to begin training soon, when suddenly, Sylvia's voice calls at him, and she approaches him to ask why he is not ready for the occasion yet. She asks him to leave quickly before they get late. Leon obediently agrees with his mom and contemplates the fact that the second judgment ceremony has come to face him once again. He annoyingly exclaims that he will have to see those bastards from the direct line of families. The concept of time in this universe really is twisted because we are once again brought back to the judgment ceremony hall. The voice of the announcer commends the last family competitor and calls for the judgment ceremony's end. Leon wonders if it is because it's the judgment ceremony of the indirect bloodlines today that the ceremony has ended earlier than expected. This is also when the Patriarch calls for his name, and acknowledging the Patriarch, Leon addresses his call. Glenn confronts Leon for not responding to the basic training orders that he has been receiving for the last month. But our hero is confused and dazed at the sudden confrontation. He does not know what the Patriarch is talking about. Just then, Sylvia walks in to address the concern, pleading that Leon still has a lot of cold energy left in his body for him to endure training. She exclaims that he is different from other children. Leon, on the other hand, is taken aback at the fact that his mother knew of this, but not him. Despite Sylvia's desperate attempts, the Patriarch coldly denies to entertain any such thoughts, emphasizing that this is the Ziggurat's land and there are no exceptions for the one named in the Ziggurat family. He expresses that if one cannot walk, they must crawl in order to train. Sylvia continues her desperate attempt, and her voice shatters down as she pleads the Patriarch for a bit more time. But once again, the Patriarch does not like to play around. He confronts and questions her if she will leave the family once again with the child. She is startled and forced to stand in a daze as the Patriarch enforces that this is the Ziggurat land and she must live according to their ways. He warns her that if she does not wish to comply, she is free to leave right this moment. Falling into deep despair and regret, she recalls all of her past mistakes. All the while, she hears the harsh words of the people, taunting her and calling her names, claiming that she will run away again. But this time, she won't have any more energy cores to destroy. The words cut through her skin, and she is shattered when the people shame her for being from the direct bloodline. Observing his mother's expressions, Liam understands why she gets treated so harshly. It is because she had abandoned the family once before. He explains that Sylvia has had traces of learning martial arts, but no mana energy. He tells us that after breaking her own mana circuits and energy core, she had left to marry his father, who had died while she was still pregnant, leaving her no choice but to return to her family. Liam understands that a member of the direct lineage that had left on her own and came back crawling would be treated poorly. However, he steps up in front of the Patriarch, making his emotions of anger clear. Now he is her son and he cannot watch her mother get treated so harshly. Looks like the confrontation is imminent. But will our hero's grandfather actually show him mercy for standing up to his mother? In spirit and determination to protect and shield his guardian, Leon walks up the hall to confront the Patriarch, while Sylvia desperately calls for him to stop this madness. She yells that she will fix everything once again. Denying his mother's wish, Leon walks up in front of the Patriarch and sheds light on the matter. He expresses that as the Patriarch has ordered, he will begin his training next month. Seeing the bravery and determination of our hero, the current Martial Hallmaster asks if he was not made aware of this training lease. He expresses that even if he wasn't, he should not pursue the training with his current condition as he is still sick. He presses that Leon should give it up. The show of bravery does not end here as Leon is persistent and tells the Hallmaster that it is okay, and he wants to live up to the Ziggurat name. Upon hearing this news, Glenn the Patriarch viciously glares at Leon for claiming such a difficult feat, and he questions if Leon understands the weight those words carry. The intense pressure of the Patriarch's aura courses through Leon's body, and he feels the immense force of the Patriarch's ability. He is taken aback and startled, as is apparent by a small spatter of blood that drops on the floor. Leon's eyes widen as he firmly tightens his fist. He concerns and points out that just the Patriarch's glare can do so much, elaborating that the feeling is as if his heart is being crushed by the immense force of the aura. He concludes that the Patriarch is much stronger than Robert, and he asks himself if this is the true power of the King of Annihilation. Helen and Sylvia rush to his aid, and they comfort the distressed hero as the Martial Hallmaster joins them. He encourages the Patriarch to calm down, exclaiming that Leon is just a child. But this does not stop the Patriarch's deathly glare and aura. Instead, it intensifies, and both Sylvia and the Martial Hallmaster stand down immediately in nervousness. Sylvia cannot see her son being pressed on like this, and she immediately hugs him to protect him while screaming for her father to stop, pleading that Leon is not in the condition to train so intensely with his current state. Observing and witnessing this intense situation, our hero, lost in thought, recounts that he was once an assassin, someone who lived in the shadows. And reminiscing about his past life, he continues to tell that he was always closer to death than life, and he never stepped out of darkness. Feeling a push from behind, Leon exclaims and addresses his new self. He will no longer do the same. He will no longer hide in the darkness. Our young hero meets the eye of his former self in his past, pushing and encouraging him to move forward. Young Liam gazes upon his past self, exclaiming that he will no longer live as the assassin. He grits his teeth and flares up in anger. And moving forward at the Patriarch, he continues to make a point that he will now live as Leon Ziggurat and will bring back Sylvia her original position in the family. Yelling at the Patriarch, Leon confronts him as he tells him that he was raised in a separate building of the residence, and he does not know how high in the societal ranks the Ziggurat family is. So he suggests that he would like to learn that through training. Sweat trickles down his face, but his intentions are pure and strong. He recalls the joyful times and happy instances he experienced with Sylvia and Helen, determined that he will protect her and make sure to regain the smiles and joy of all the people that are precious to him. Glenn questions if the young boy wishes to judge the Ziggurat family's standards through training and gathering up all the strength he has left. Leon stutters and shakingly tells that he does not have any other choice. Breathing heavily and attempting to catch his breath, Leon stands before the Patriarch as he tells him that he will need to have the instructor prepare accordingly as not to disappoint him. Just hearing these words, Leon calmly lets go and slowly falls to the ground with Sylvia and Helen rushing to his aid. Fallen on the ground as our hero slowly loses consciousness, he contemplates that in his past life he was an assassin, but now he is someone that has learned a legend of the continent, the Fire's Ring. And Sylvia concludes that by utilizing both these abilities, becoming a prominent member of this family is not impossible for him. Before finally letting go and submitting to the weight of fatigue catching up to him, he tightens his fist and exclaims that he'll show them all how strong he'll become. A change of setting now takes us to the training grounds where swords clank with each other as the children train and spar with each other while an instructor observes their moves. We are then introduced to the intermediate martial Halm, Karan Zigart, who questions the claim that the boy was too weak to even properly move. A nervous messenger reports to the martial Halm as he elaborates that many maids have overheard the conversations between the saint and the patriarch, and it is definite that the boy is suffering from a serious illness. Karun deepens in thought as he recalls that the boy's body was definitely in a bad condition when he saw him earlier today in the judgment ceremony, and all the other times he's seen him. But he wonders how the child was able to withstand his father's aura. Concluding his contemplation, he recalls that Sylvia was known to be more talented than anyone else. Following his deep thinking, he calls the messenger to place a maid in their building and to do so as quickly as possible. The man obeys and agrees to do so. Our hero is seen sprinting over grassy fields as Sylvia chases him down, pleading that he does not push himself. He is determined as he runs faster and faster while Karun's voice still echoes and he exclaims, asking the messenger to have the planted maid report everything that happens there. Chanting the name of the respected patriarch, the secretariat guards salute and make way for him. As he walks down his path into the annex, a mysterious man with long red hair and pointy ears lies comfortably on a couch, his face hidden by a hat. The patriarch approaches the man and addresses him as Limmer, asking him to stop pretending to be asleep and to get up. Limer sits up immediately at this call and commends that the patriarch really is amazing. This is when we are introduced to the brilliant sword Limer Diaz. He elaborates that the patriarch is the only one his sleeping techniques don't work on. Glenn expresses concern that Limmer, as the head instructor, is wasting his time on such nonsense while all the other instructors are working hard. Limer answers this concern by playfully telling him that they are only following his orders and are working with their bodies while he works with his head. Annoyed, the patriarch exclaims that Limer has not matured even after 50 years. But Limer laughs it off, stating that people don't really change, and besides, he is an elf anyway. Observing the patriarch's concerned look, he asks if he is here to talk about his grandson too, and he adds that Sylvia had to come too. This surprises the patriarch, and he explains that she asked him to make sure that Leon does not get hurt. Limer stands up to face the patriarch as he elaborates that if he is here to ask him the same, he is wasting his time. He elaborates that Glenn himself had expressed that he won't interfere in the 5th training hall. Following this rant, Limer presses with a heavy tone that he won't make any exceptions for his grandson either, and the patriarch surprisingly agrees to this, which shakes up Limer, who expected a different response. Glenn stands firm as he asks Limmer not to lessen the intensity of the training, stating that he does not want any weaklings. Taken aback, Limer gasps and covers his mouth to express the sheer shock that the patriarch has put him through just as the realization dawned upon him. He bursts out in awe and flutters, stating that the patriarch must love his grandson very much and is projecting that love onto him which he could not give to Sylvia. This angers and infuriates Glenn, and he exclaims that if he was not his veteran friend, his head would be rolling off the floor. Adding on, Glenn asks Limmer not to go easy and to fail all those who are unworthy so that only the worthy ones can receive his training. Limer agrees with this claim and expresses that he will do as he wishes. Concluding their conversation, the patriarch asks for his leave and steps away as Limmer enthusiastically sees him off. After the patriarch has left, Limer dwells and wonders what Leon is like as he stands across his table and thinks of different training regimes. The message window appears once again to showcase our hero's now updated abilities and stats, highlighting that he has now achieved the 3rd ring of fire. He smiles to contemplate his achievement and expresses that the 3-star rings really do feel different. He explains that his sensitivity has increased and his mind feels a lot clearer. Recalling where we left off, he sees Sylvia helping him up as she scolds him for pushing too hard on the first day. Narrating over this memory, Leon elaborates that thanks to Sylvia stopping him at the right moment, his body is now becoming more flexible. He gazes upon the message window to tell that this magical status window is also quickening the growth. But this is not the right milestone for him. And he expresses that the Zygarde's training is infamous for its difficulty. He exclaims that just being a 3-star fire ring is not enough and adds that he needs to have a good foundation to be able to build tall buildings and survive. He imagines himself as a commonant in the Zygarde family as he continues to state that he will excel more than anyone else so that all the guys who have mocked him will shut up. And then he empathizes with the heavenly swordsman Daruth Robert, determining that he will not rest easily until he has slain him. However, just then, our hero is snapped back into reality when a voice calls to him. He looks over to find Sylvia, his mom, calling to him and asking why he is still up. She sits across from him on his bed, and upon questioning by Leon about what she is doing up so late, she mentions that since he is going to the training hall tomorrow for training, she wanted to talk to him before he leaves. She gazes upon her child and questions, must he really go? She comes clean and reveals that she does not want him to go. She elaborates that Leon does not express when he is hurting, adding in concern that he might get injured or hurt badly. Persistent as she is, she exclaims that she actually wants him to go, but she cannot help the concern as she voices it and asks him to postpone his enrollment to next year. But Sylvia is taken aback when Leon blatantly refuses and denies this request made by his mom. And recalling all the bad and humiliating moments, he elaborates that he cannot stand it. When everyone from the direct or indirect bloodlines, or even when the workers from their annex see her, their eyes fill up with disgust. He exclaims that he can't stand it at all. Sylvia is speechless at this digression, but Leon continues to comfort his mother as he elaborates that he believes that she will be treated better if he does well in training. Nevertheless, she smiles and she fidgets and plays with her fingers before she nervously states that she is sure Leon had thought it was strange why they lived separately and why people talk badly about them. She recalls her memory to explain that she fell in love with his father coincidentally when she was on a mission, but it was difficult for her to be with him since he was just a knight. Then she narrates that she shut down her mana core and left the family. She also tells Leon that he actually had a sister named Sia who was 10 years older than him. She recalls and tells that they were living peacefully when Eden's executive ambushed them. And amidst the battle, she expresses that Leon's father was not that powerful and unfortunately she was pregnant with him at the time. And somberly expressing, she tells that there was nothing they could do against them. However, she adds that his father had hired guards without her knowledge. But she regretfully informs that they arrived at the scene too late because by then his father and sister were already dead. She concludes the story elaborating that so this is why she came back to the family not knowing what to do and why the family treats them like sinners. Adding on, she tells him that she really could not say anything against it. Leon thinks about this whole situation and deems his mother selfish. Elaborating, he tells that she threw away her responsibilities in the name of love and came back crawling to be saved. He expresses that he now understands why the family treats her so coldly. However, emotions take over our hero and he states that she is the one who gave him a new life and showed him affection for the first time. And he makes a point that even if everyone else calls her selfish to him, she is the only mother he has had in both lives. Leon then asks Sylvia if she regrets it, if she wants to go back to the time before she left the family, but she denies and she explains that she used to feel invisible in the family before, but she felt like a real person when she finally left. And she expresses that it is enough for her being happy then and being happy now. Continuing the heartfelt conversation, she apologizes to Leon for being such a terrible mother, but she is interrupted by Leon, who states it to be fine. He addresses his mother and tells her that he will be fine, so he asks her not to worry, gazing into each other's eyes for a moment. Leon smiles at his mother while he reminds himself that even if everyone else calls her selfish, she is his only mother and can always get his revenge after he helps her regain her position in the family. Mumbling turns into slow tears and slow tears turn into sobbing as Sylvia wails in front of Leon, surprising him. He asks her to stop crying and this mother-son interaction ends here. Leon sees his mother out of his room as he sighs and expresses that reassuring her was really hard. He then sits on his bed once again as he plans to check the malleability of the Ring of Fire before he can sleep. Mentioning that he does not have a lot of time before the training starts, and he sits in a unique stance performing the technique as blue flames rise and flare up in the room viciously. He notices that the rings spin faster now that they are at level 3. But he wonders what it will be like once they get to the intermediate levels. The flame suddenly blazes violently and bursts out into the air in front of our hero as his eyes widen in shock. The flames speak in a strange voice as it states to have finally come. It rises and rises as our hero glares in anticipation. A giant ball accumulates in front of him as it viciously smiles and elaborates that the time has finally come when his rage has reached him. The blue flame pays his respects to Wrath, the second lord of the demon realm, and expresses that he will help Leon's revenge dreams come true. However, Leon is surprised and taken back as he questions this claim and a message window pops up telling him that he has unlocked 2 new traits. The rage trait is being activated, but the second one remains entitled. The blue flame continues to rage and blaze as it expresses the offer to our hero, but it is taken aback in shock and stops midway to address the concern. The ball of blue flame questions why there is a child standing before him. Leon steps away to prepare to engage in battle against the mysterious ball of fire that has suddenly appeared in front of him, and he asks what it is. But the ball of fire seems to be just as confused, and he expresses the same concern to elaborate that the rage that reached him was not an emotion that a kid like Leon can feel. Upon a second glance, the ball of blue fire's eyes widen as the realization dawns upon him, and it exclaims that it was definitely the child standing before him. The child has been hiding a deep and dark rage within him. Leon hardens his facial expressions and is skeptical of the ball of fire as it asks him to give away his body and soul to him, and then he will help him get the revenge that he desires. He wonders if the ball of fire is here because of his violent rage against Ruth Robert before he was reborn. But if it is, he expresses that the ball of fire is way too late. Following the skeptical nature and suspicion of the ball of fire, Leon denies his offer and states that he will get his revenge on his own. This confuses the ball, who anticipated an answer. He floats around Leon's body as Leon tells him that he will exact revenge on Dur himself, thinking that he can't get the help of another in such a matter. But the ball of fire does not seem to buy this claim, as he expresses that Leon seems to be misunderstanding something. Smiling widely, the ball rises up once again and states that he is not here to negotiate. The huge ball of fire blazes again, and it viciously glares at our hero to alert him that he has already made his decision. Although the flames catch onto Leon's body, he immediately notices something strange. The flames are cold. Realizing this could only mean one thing, Leon steps back nervously. The ball of flame flares and rushes forward as it yells that now all Leon needs to do is give him his body. Leon steps away from the threat as the blue ball of fire approaches him. The fire approaches nearer and nearer. There does not seem to be anything that our hero can do when the flames finally reach Leon's body as a burst of light illuminates the room. Following the strange interaction, he does not seem to be feeling too well. As he grabs hold of his chest firmly, his eyes widen in shock, and he expresses that he feels as if his mind is going to freeze over. He wonders if it is the attribute of cold that is causing this strange and uncomfortable feeling. A mysterious and vicious avatar dawns over Leon as its heavy voice instigates him to think of the person to bring up the rage, and he will kill him even if it is a god. Shivering and shaking, Leon rubs his hands over his arms, curling up into a ball as he expresses that he is able to endure the attack somewhat thanks to his water attribute tolerance ability. But he realizes that this attack is not just cold. Adding on, he elaborates that the mysterious entity is consistently stimulating his rage. Awful and torturous moments from his past life constantly replay in his head as he is reminded of the pain he has endured in the days he has spent in torment. The mysterious man hollows over near to our hero's ear as he exclaims that he will break the man's skull and eat up on his flesh. And so Liam gives up on his body and lets the man take over. Recalling the joyful moments he has spent with the maids and his mother, Sylvia, he worries about what will happen to them if he gives up his body to this strange entity that has appeared so suddenly. He grits his teeth in frustration, determined to not let go so easily. And he exclaims that he cannot let him have his body no matter what happens. The blue ball of fire has once again appeared before our hero as it hovers over him and continues to persuade him by saying that it would have been easier for him to give in to his rage and accept the entity, but he is just holding on for no reason at all. He exclaims that he was going to minimize the damage since he was going to use his body, but our hero leaves him no choice. It expresses that it will just swallow whole without waiting any further, and it seems like the situation is worsening. It's apparent by the look on Leon's face as he attempts to catch his breath. And he expresses that it feels like his body is going to break into pieces. Holding on to dear life, our hero expresses regret, realizing that he is almost at his limit, and he'll end up dying at this rate if he does nothing at all to survive. But just then, something clicks in Leon's head as his eyes widen and the realization dawns upon him. He grips his hands together and grits his teeth to give it his all, elaborating that if he could endure the cold due to his water tolerance attribute, then he might be able to reduce the pain in his body and mind through the ring of fire. Noticing it to be the only option he has left to survive, our hero musters up all his strength to counter the cold. And his move works as the heat from the ring of fire slowly pushes away the cold from Leon, surprising the ball of blue fire. He groans in frustration, seeing a child push away and counter his attack. He expresses that even if it hasn't been long since he has awakened, a feat like this is impossible. His annoyance is further elevated at the fact that the foe is just a human child. Sweat trickles down Leon's face as the cold slowly goes away and the heat of the ring of fire intensifies. He glares at the ball of fire and warns that he will get revenge on his own without needing to let a ghost use his body. The blue ball of fire is offended by this statement as it rages and blazes violently at our hero. He questions how dare the human child call one of the great demon lords a ghost. Playfully teasing the entity, Leon asks why he hasn't been able to kill him if he is a lord of the demon realm. He continues to tease and taunt the lord as he states that the lord of the demon realm isn't anything special, and he suggests that he just disappears. Infuriated at this insulting interaction, the ball of fire starts growling at Leon. Observing and recalling the demon lord's words, realizes that he is said to have just awakened, which could possibly mean that the ball of a demon lord has yet to restore his full strength. Leon's deepening thoughts over the strange lord of the demon realm are broken off by a message from the system window that notifies him of special abilities that have been unlocked. Gazing upon the message window in curiosity, he finds his stats to be shown in a number format. At this realization, the lord of the demon realm freaks out, yelling that it is his authority, and he questions why the little boy has it. Our hero asks if the blue ball of fire has anything to do with the sudden change in the format of the message window. And although the ball frowns at first and affirms that he has made the system, and he annoyingly questions why it is with him. Feeding into his curiosity, Leon once again asks what kind of system it is. But the demon lord has no interest in revealing anything to him. But he finds himself immediately taken aback and dazed when he answers his own question to express that it might be for quicker progress. The blue ball of fire blazes in rage and confusion as he wonders how the little boy knows. Leon, on the other hand, blatantly glares at the spirit in front of him, concluding that he can't even hide his emotions at all. Contemplating over the mysterious workings of the system, our hero mentions that he too had thought it to be strange that his ring of fire ability was more effective than in his past life. But now he realizes that it was because of the system. Filled with rage and frustration, the spirit of the demon lord flares violently as he demands that the little boy gives up his authority and body to him. But just as he continues to press on our hero, he sees a powerful energy blow coming towards him, and he immediately dodges as the attack flows right through its hollow spiritual form. Enraged even more, he asks what the little boy is doing, and Leon gleefully expresses that he is hidden with mana just in case. Observing the outcome of the attack, he notices that the spirit of the demon lord does not have a physical body, which would mean that aura won't work on him either. And considering the fact that no one else has come rushing and after the ruckus they have caused, it's apparent that he's probably the only one who can see or hear this spirit. Having enough of the little boy taunting and playing with him, the blue ball of fire is fed up and yells at Leon before flowing directly at his wrists. Leon's eyes widen as he flinches at the sudden hostile movement, but he is taken aback again when the blue ball of fire is now turned into a bracelet with ice crystals for beads. And even in the form of a mere bracelet, the lord of the demon realm does not shy away from shit-talking. He exclaims that it hasn't been long since his seal has been undone, but his powers will return soon and then no one will be able to stop him. He warns that he will stick with Liam till the day he dies. Our hero is nervous. He expresses the entity to be a leech, but he is afraid of the system going away if he tries to take him off. And he is also concerned about what he might do to Sylvia and Helen. But concluding the interaction, he glares at the bracelet once again, determining that it might be better to keep him close and watch him. He will just restrict him and hope that he grows stronger fast enough before him. Bothered by the look of the bracelet, Leon asks why the spirit had to take the form of a floral bracelet, exclaiming that it does not look good on him. The spirit frowns and yells at Leon to respect his taste. And what can Leon even do at this point, which is why he just sigh. The sun brightly shines over the morning ground, and Helen and Sylvia are seen waiting in the grand hall of the annex. Sylvia is worried for her son, while Helen consoles and comforts her, assuring her that the young master will do well. That's when Leon finally comes down from his room. He calls out that he is ready, and Sylvia and Helen immediately glance over at our young hero walking down the stairs. He smiles and expresses that he will now be going to the training hall. Our hero leaves the annex for his big day at the training hall, and Helen can't help herself but worry for her young master as she asks him not to push himself too much. Leon affirms her concerns and takes his leave, pointing out Sylvia's sad and gleeful face. Helen asks her if she is going to see off the young master with such a face and make him sad. She listens to her words as she crouches down to hold her son and tells him that she believes in him. Leon smiles at this beautiful gesture from his mother and shares the same sentiment as he affirms that he won't push himself too hard and won't give up if it gets too difficult. Saying this, our hero takes off to achieve his dreams as he waves to say goodbye. Sylvia still can't help herself as she glares at her son leaving her side. She asks Helen if she thinks he will be all right, and she comforts her, telling her that he has gotten much better, so much so that he might even pass the training. Not being able to take her eyes off her precious son, Sylvia expresses that Helen is right, but she still cannot let go of the fact that Leon is different from other children. A few moments before the great send-off, we see Sylvia hugging the young master as Helen notifies her that the instructor assigned to him is the best in the Zygarde family. She comforts her once again, saying that Leon has been trying really hard recently, so she is sure that he will be able to make it. And Leon shares the same determination as he repeats Helen's words and tells his mom that he won't get hurt. Staying true to his promise, he asks her not to worry. But Sylvia, being a mother, can't stop crying as she holds on to her dear son. She recalls her son's words, asking her to trust him, and she holds onto her chest, calling for her son as he walks away. Shaking and trembling, Sylvia is in despair. She does not want her dear son to leave her, exclaiming she asked him to come back safely, while Helen comforts her to get a grip. The training grounds have been set for training as of now, and we are finally brought to the 5th training hall of the Zygardes. Numerous young participants walk up the walkway into the training hall as they converse to ask where they are from. A group of 2 siblings in particular are seen walking as they smile and mention that their father and mother told them to get into the top 10. Walking among the huge crowd of aspiring martial artists is our hero Leon, and he is also a bit surprised to see the number of people present. He elaborates that it's not just people from the Zygarde family's direct and indirect bloodlines, but also recommended students from the vassal families and outside. Having a look around, he recalls that according to Helen, there are a lot of people this year, so the 6th training hall is also helping out. This is when he overhears students chuckling and whispering about calling and pointing fingers at him. He looks over his shoulder to find students laughing and whispering as they make fun of him, expressing that he looks weak and fragile. The students also make fun of a floral bracelet, calling forth the spirit of the blue ball of fire as it enrages and flares violently in question at the insult. Leon walks calmly up to the 2 kids as the blue ball of fire flows around them. He exclaims that the kids are parasites that do not know humility and he will rip out their eyeballs and crush their spirits if they don't shut the F up. Instead of buzzing around like mosquitoes, Leon wants these brats to say everything to his face. This unexpected confrontation shakes up the students as they immediately turn back to face Leon. He confronts and asks the students if they do not know the saying of not speaking ill behind someone's back, especially if they cannot say it to their face. The kids are taken aback in fear as they mumble to point out that Leon is degraded to living in an annex, and he isn't even from the direct bloodline. But he will not be fazed by the harsh words as he simply mentions that the students too are from the indirect bloodlines, which does not give them the right to question how he dares to confront them. The students snap and are enraged at Leon talking back at them. They exclaim that such is the tone someone uses when they're talking to a person below their own rank. And in a fit of frustration, one of the kids rushes forward to grab our hero by the neck as he pulls back his fist to attack. Leon also prepares to fight back. His eyes start to glow red and he glares at the opponents before him. In the next instance, a voice yells out to stop the fight and the kid stands down immediately, concerned about the consequences. Another kid walks up to them, saying that the training is starting soon and points out that this place has outsiders visiting too. He questions if the students plan on shaming the Zigart name. He is introduced to be from the direct bloodline, Bern Zigart. Bern faces off against our hero in an intense stare-down, as the two students stand beside him in shame and apologize to the boy of the direct lineage. The arrogant boy crosses his arms to mention that our hero is still not aware of his place. He exclaims that Leon is nothing more than dust, telling him to stay low if he doesn't want to get kicked out of the annex. Following the confrontation, Bern recalls the time at the judgment ceremony, pissed that Leon getting the Patriarch's attention was just pure luck and he just used the situation to his advantage. Bern scoffs and frowns, concluding that a loser like Leon will definitely fail the training. Our hero observes as Bern walks away, asking him to leave if he is not going to behave, also mentioning that he is not going to pass the training anyway. But before Bern can leave, Leon points out that he has heard enough of his nonsense. This startles him as his eyes widen in question at the unexpected statement. Bern immediately turns his head at the disrespectful child, and our hero continues. He insults Bern for his arrogance, claiming that the only thing going for him is the fact that he's from the direct bloodline. Aside from that, Leon warns him that he has no right or authority to talk down to him when he's not even a trainee. He then taunts him even further by saying that he might actually be able to do something if he goes and complains to his father like a brat. This enrages him as he grits his teeth in frustration, and his eyes sharpen at the bastard who has spewed such nonsense. But before he can do anything, a door bursts open beside the two growling beasts, ready to kill each other. Out comes the red-haired elf, who stares in amazement at the two kids already fighting even before the training has begun. Leon immediately recognizes the man to be the Zigart family's brilliant sword, Limer. He recalls that Limer had retired because its energy core had been destroyed. Limer glances upon the sudden appearance, expressing that he did not expect him to be here, and he joyfully asks the kids to hold off the fight until at least the entrance ceremony ends. And obeying the brilliant sword, Wern walks away quietly as he scoffs. Moving forward, the entrance ceremony has started as all the students stand in line in front of a stage where Limer welcomes them all and introduces himself to be the head instructor who will be in charge of the training. Pointing out the number of candidates to be 160, he expresses that it's way too many. And so he says that he will cut down the numbers with a series of tests. In fact, he clarifies that the number will be cut down to a quarter. This sparks confusion and astonishment among the crowd of students as they question this absurd claim. But Limer elaborates that he prefers to only keep a small number of elites and not bother with the riffraff. Spiking in anger, the Lord of the Demon Realm yells out to call the brilliant sword an arrogant bastard, threatening to cut down the elf seers if he dares to look down on him. Leon desperately tries to shut him up as he strikes down on his bracelet. Limer casually sits and rocks on his chair upon the stage as he expresses that his word is considered law on the training grounds. If anyone has a problem with what he has to say, they can take it up with the Patriarch. Following this warning, he asks to begin the tests right away. He points out at the students, telling them to immediately start running. This confuses the students as they at first question this absurd test, but they soon rush away as they compete against each other diligently. Limer cheers them on as he shouts that the basics of martial arts are physical strength and mental power, encouraging them to run as fast as they can, sprinting before the other students. The spirit of the blue ball of fire appears in front of Liam to express his concern. It wonders why Liam is all the way in the back when he should be aiming for the front, but Liam elaborates that it's not a competition, and he does not need to get past the other guys. Leo knows that Limer is observing, expressing that he looks into others' potential and temperament, and he won't be judging based on just what the eye can see. Sweat trickles down his face. He huffs, desperately attempting to catch his breath, and he assesses that the winner in this test is the one who endures till the end. Concluding his assessment, he is determined that he will make it till the end no matter what. Commenting on the test, the instructors announce that Sir Bernan and Lady Lunan can be seen sprinting at the front, They discuss that everyone is fast, but it is especially so in the case of these two. Another instructor also adds that the speed they are running at isn't their best, so he's sure that they can run for hours on end. They continue to observe the students as they rush away on the track as they commend the speed of the leading two to be extraordinary for their age, which means that their future growth will be incredible as well. Turning their attention to our hero, they point out at him among the participants. They comment that he's been in the back all this time, unable to catch up, but they acknowledge that he is sick, which actually makes it impressive that he can run at all. Limer looks upon the two instructors, observing the race and our hero as they conclude that he is going to fail. But Limer's expression seems joyfully astonished as he smiles and elaborates that it's interesting that he has never seen something like this before. Following into deep contemplation, Limer expresses that the humans whose talents he could not calculate were just the strongest people on the continent, which made it difficult to see the depths of their power. But as far as other people go, he can easily see their potential. For example, he can tell what sort of power Baron and Lunan will hold in their future. However, while pointing out our boy Leon, he expresses that he cannot see anything at all. Limer concludes that this could only mean that Leon is stronger than him. Therefore, he is out of his reach. He strokes his chin in curiousness and smiles as he remarks it to be interesting. The two kids that picked on our hero earlier now run past him as they point out that he had been so arrogant before, but now he can't even keep up with them at all. Leon is in last place, so the brats guess that he will fail the test soon. Not letting anything get in his way, our boy still continues to sprint and run with all his might as he suddenly looks up in concern and questions that they're just running even though it is supposed to be training. In his past life, Leon had to constantly run for his life from starved beasts, which was just a basic part of his training as an assassin. And so he sprouts a wide smile on his face as he comments this training is far too easy in comparison. The race continues in full spirit as the students rush forward on the track. Observing the students is Limer, the brilliant sword. He singles out Leon, questioning how he is still running. He elaborates that Leon had exhausted his stamina long ago and is way past the boundary of determination. Limer concludes that Leon shouldn't have any stamina left in him to squeeze out. He can tell that our boy has the same kind of mentality as those who have been trained to survive until the brink of death, which is quite fascinating for a young child. Observing this amazing talent, Limer deems the young master to be quite interesting. Bert is frustrated. Seeing Leon continue to run and keep up with him in Raid's spur, he sneers and wonders how Leon is still able to run. When he was told that the boy was too weak to train, he recalls the information provided by his messenger that the Saint of Rags assessed Leon with the curse of the bitter cold. Leon has a low chance of surviving childhood, let alone learning martial arts. And even at first glance, it's not a secret that Leon looks fragile. Annoyed at things not going according to plan and everyone proving him wrong, Byrne grits his teeth in frustration before yelling out the move or utilization. A burst of energy follows right after with beams of light crackling around his body. In his childish rage, Byrne has started using his aura in the race just to show off that he's much better than everyone else, and he rushes forward with electric beams crackling and sparking around him, leaving behind Lunan and Leon, who follow him. Witnessing the sudden change in speed and agility, Leon is quite taken aback. He observes that although Byrne speaks like a noble, he is just a kid. In comparison, he thinks that Lady Lunan might actually be much more mentally mature than the brat who rushed ahead. Keeping his focus, he then concludes that this is just a test and not a competition, so there's no need to break his pace just because his opponent wants to show off. The sun shines down once again as the hot beams scorch the ground, and all the other students who withdrew from the test due to exhaustion fall to the ground as they catch their breaths. The two kids that called Leon names and badmouth him observe and question how the boy is still able to keep running. Another student adds that she had heard of Leon being weak because he is ill, but this result contradicts everything. Our brave young master keeps on going while the students wonder how he does not get tired. But you see, Leon denies these absurd claims because he feels as though he is about to die due to the coldness in his body. And he adds to the bleak situation, expressing that it also feels like his heart and lungs are going to collapse at any moment. But he is determined. He utilizes the ring of fire to squeeze out any little stamina that he has left inside him. Whatever the circumstances, he smiles at the conclusion that the ring of fire is improving quickly, and he plans that he just needs to activate it to full force in order to feel its proper effects. But before he can proceed, the voice of the blue spirit pops up once again, calling our boy pitiful. He questions the state of his body and claims that he is nothing but his future vessel. The spirit of the blue ball of fire reaches out once again beside him as he demands him to hand over his body and soul instead of trying to surpass the blue-haired human. Exclaiming in refusal of the unfortunate situation, our hero calls for it to stop, but it's too late. The spirit yells out that it will freeze everything, and a wave of freezing coldness strikes Leon. He frowns in pain and agitation just as the strong cold hits him, but he knows that he must endure the cold in order to pass the test and move on. Slowing down his pace, he feels as if his mind is being taken over by rage, but he knows he must endure it and pretend as if nothing is wrong. Fed up with the nonsense, Leon now confronts the spirit, asking him to stop this savage and stay still because this instigating act won't work on him. But the Demon Lord is persistent and questions Leon's claim, elaborating that there is no human that can withstand his rage. The cold intensifies and cuts through our hero's vitals, as is apparent when he grabs hold of his chest from the immense pain. The freezing cold strikes again, and the Demon Lord viciously expresses a desire to see how long he can endure the pain. This small setback is nothing for the brave warrior, as Leon knows that he has to endure the pain no matter what. Because if he shows even the slightest hint of weakness, the demon will swallow him whole. The pain intensifies and grows, but Leon holds his own to survive. The blue ball of fire is enraged and it yells in frustration, questioning why his rage won't work on the weak little boy. Seeing the outcome of pushing himself too far, the fatigue catches up to him. He expresses that his body feels like it's going to collapse and he might die at any moment. His eyes begin to close slowly as his consciousness slips, and he acknowledges that he cannot breathe properly. The intense situation now lessens when, before more damage can be done, the brilliant sword of the Zikart calls for the test to be over, and all the students participating in the test fall like flies to catch their breath and take some rest on the ground. Leon also joins the students to catch his breath as he sweats profusely while Byrne glares at him with a look of frustration, calling him a determined bastard in annoyance. While catching his breath and breathing heavily, he acknowledges that he almost died and concludes that this life isn't going to be easy either. Lunan looks over and observes our hero while he catches his breath before the spirit of the Demon Lord appears once again to throw a tantrum. He yells and puffs up in rage and frustration, calling him a monstrous bastard, and questions how he managed to pull it off. But answering the question, Leon reminds him this is why he asked him to stop. Acknowledging the outcome of the limit testing training, he notices that the ring of fire has also grown, and thanks to the status window, his physical capacity has improved too. He aspires that if he continues to train like this, he can achieve greater feats. Just then, his attention is diverted, and he looks up to find a huge status window in front of him that notifies him of fulfilling the conditions, resulting in increased experience points and physical capabilities. Leon glares in astonishment at the status window with his mouth open, while the spirit of the Demon Lord exclaims and questions why he is getting extra experience points for putting up with his rage. He yells out and states it to be absurd. The students once again stand before the stage as Lumber the Brilliant Sword commends everyone for doing their best, and he moves on to what he said before the test started. And hearing this, the looks on the students' faces show despair and nervousness as they await their inevitable failure of passing. But to their surprise, Limer playfully exclaims that he was just lying about cutting down the numbers to a quarter. This results in a loud and collective gasp from the students, which then transitions into yelling as the students enrage and express that they ran like hell because he said that. But Limer elaborates that he cannot fail so many people on the first day. He would not have anyone to teach. However, he also adds that he did not specify to fail them today. And transitioning back to horror, Limer fiercely warns the students that if they show the same results as today, most of them are doomed to fail. This alerts the students once again as they now become determined to train hard. He paces across the stage as he addresses the students, and he reminds them of running with all they had. He points out that none out of all the 160 of them kept it up till the very end except for one. He also mentions students who gave up and started using aura. This alerts Byrne, who is guilty of doing so, and he fears suspension over this act. But as he crouches down in front of Leon, he adds that he does not care how they do it, as they are the ones taking the test after all. And he makes an okay sign up front of Leon as he continues to tell them that if the students do as he says, they won't fail the test. But he also mentions that it won't be easy either. Moving on, he now faces the students once again and addresses them to tell that they are now provisional trainee, but will become official trainee once they pass the tests they will take in the next 6 months. He joyfully mentions that he is going to pick the top trainee, although he won't be the one to rank them. Calling off the training, Limer lets them go and guides them to the top quality dormitories provided by the Zigart family, mentioning that there is a training center next to it too. The scene then shifts to tree leaves fluttering and sunlight shining through the forest. We are now brought to the forest near the training hall as Limer walks up to a mysterious figure in royal attire that awaits his arrival. Limer, the Brilliant Sword, winks and addresses the person in front of him as he states that someone has taken up his napping spot, and he reveals the person to be the Patriarch. Glenn, the Patriarch, acknowledges Limer's arrival and immediately asks him what had happened, and he slowly walks up to him as he asks the Patriarch why he is asking him when he himself was here the entire time to witness the whole thing. But continuing with his statement, Limer explains that the Patriarch knows he has great eyes and can see the future in children. Elaborating, he tells that Byrne and Lunan are greatly talented as they already knew, and the other children also have a lot of potential to become great pillars of the family. But he adds that he cannot see anything in Leon. The Patriarch proceeds to acknowledge this information, while Limer adds that he was sure Leon was out of stamina, which he questions and asks how he was able to keep on running. He also tells the Patriarch that it is the first time after him that he has not been able to see anything in someone. And he expresses in joy that his life has been very boring ever since his energy core had been ruined. But this is going to be interesting. Hearing what he came to hear, the Patriarch leaps off of the stone that he stands on as he tells the brilliant sword Limer that being a training instructor is what he had wanted. And as he walks away, he asks him to focus on his duties and not get distracted. Limer obeys the Patriarch, but he also mentions that he believes there is going to be someone this year to whom he can leave his future. But the Patriarch disagrees and states it to be just a coincidence. He exclaims that the child cannot become a martial artist. Seeing the Patriarch off, Limer acknowledges this statement and smiles before he exclaims that the Patriarch knows very well and it's not just a coincidence. Sighing and finally having the rest he needed, our hero sets off to the training center. Now that the test is all over with, two students glare and observe him as he steps away. And the blue ball of fire is amazed that Leon does not seem to stop training. The group of students that stand behind Leon as he walks away glare viciously at him with murderous intent. And as the sun sets over the training grounds, they exclaim it to be impossible. Two students rally on about how there's no way Leon held on for that long when they had heard that he was sick. They go on while the yellow-haired man from the indirect lineage, Crane Zickart, gleefully assesses the situation. Crane addresses the situation and adds that he had heard Leon had some kind of miracle medicine, elaborating that the Saint of Rags gave him one long ago. This follows up with a shocking response from the two trainees who question the Saint giving him this kind of boost. They scream out to conclude that this means Leon had been dependent on the medicine to run that long and he had the gall to show off. Concluding their assessment, Crane suggests that they go and teach the arrogant bastard a lesson for using cheats against them in the training. Transitioning right into the act of words, our hero is seen being slammed into a tree as he groans in pain. He slides down to the ground under the pale moonlight and asks why the group of students is doing this to him. But Crane scoffs and questions this statement from Leon. The other two students yell out and point at Leon as they elaborate that he got his direct lineage title taken away, but he is all arrogant because of some miracle medicine. They claim that if he did not have the miracle medicine given to him by the Saint of Rags, he could not have run that much today at the training. They go on to question how dare he use such dirty tricks. Leon assesses the rage and anger the students are feeling as he concludes that they are mad or something stupid. Proceeding with the confrontation, they start to prepare and stretch to launch an attack as they ask the young assassin not to be scared because they are just here to talk. Crane leads the group as they stand before Leon and threaten him. He asks him to rest assured as this kind of thing happens often before he rushes forward at the young assassin exclaiming that the instructor asked them to talk more to each other. Leon slowly stands up while the spirit of the Lord of the Demon Realm questions if he is just going to stand there listening to them talk to him like that. He also mentions that he is supposed to be his vessel, but he expresses that it's not that big of a deal. However, in a shocking turn of events, Crane is struck away with a punch to the face as the vicious glare now transfers over to the brave warrior Leon. A loud gasp follows right after as the two students are shaken up from the unexpected outcome. And this expression is also shared by the spirit of the Demon Lord who had once closed his eyes to not see the unfortunate circumstance that might befallen his vessel. Crane is blown away and falls to the ground before the two students who turn their heads in shock and they take a glance at their fallen leader who got defeated with just one punch while Leon expresses the same threatening tone. He questions their claim to talk and he viciously glares once again to ask them to talk if they wanted to so badly. The two students rush forward giving it their best and attempt to hurt the talented trainee. But their attempts are futile because they are no match for the once best assassin in the world. Seeing the group fall to their knees, another student calls upon them to question what they are doing. He then takes up the mantle to take on the bastard as he rushes forward to strike a punch while questioning the other's ability to defeat Leon. But before he can finish his sentence, his face meets with the fist of our hero as he falls to the ground as well. Leon continues to effortlessly defeat all the opponents that come charging at him, while the spirit of the Demon Lord watches in awe and remarks that his vessel is doing exceptionally well, calling the scene to be magnificent. The beaten-up students now beg for mercy as they fall to the ground and give up their hostile behavior to the one they called a bastard. In a threatening act of violence, Leon steps on Crane's hand as his wails echo throughout the forest trees, and he states to ask one more thing of him before he lets him go. Of course, Crane obediently wills to answer, falling under the agonizing pain as his voice stutters when he speaks. Leon questions who was the person that made them do this, and he immediately mentions if it was Baran. Crane snaps and is alerted upon hearing his name, but he mumbles that they did this without the young master knowing, and he is not related to this at all. Our hero seems to be confused, and he expresses that such an answer is unexpected when he thought Byrne hated him. But he concludes that maybe the guy is not too far gone. And following the confrontation, he questions Crane if he is safe to assume that he would not go on telling others about their conversation. Once again, Crane immediately mutters to agree to the terms. However, just then, the bully is grabbed by his hair and brought closer to Leon, where he glares viciously into his eyes to tell him that he better avoid him if he does not want to have another conversation with him. Filled with fear and horror, Crane immediately mutters that he will not even step on the young master's shadow. Leon lets him go, asking him to go away if he understands. The group rushes off away from the threatening young master, but there is a mysterious man hiding among the shadows that watches over the situation. The man is revealed to be Limer, who smiles at the outcome of the quarrel as he deems it interesting to watch, and he expresses that it was like seeing the Patriarch when he was young. Then he concludes that Leon seems to be talented in martial arts too, making him a true Zigart. Limer's excitement reaches the skies as he mentions an unknown talent hidden among the most talented children, and he expresses that he is getting even more interested in our hero by the day. Not going to lie, the dude is starting to creep me out. Bringing us back to the training halls, we see the former assassin gazing upon the message window as it notifies him of wrath, being satisfied with the conditions being fulfilled and his agility being increased by 1. The spirit of the demon lord expresses rage and anger as it acknowledges the extra bonus points for something so pointless. He questions the increase in ability, but Leon asks why he doesn't know when he's the one who made the system. But the spirit grits its teeth in frustration as it confronts him and answers to tell it it's obvious that he does not know, especially when it has never been taken away from him before. He elaborates that Leon is stealing his power that remains in his original form. Now enlightened of such information, Leon acknowledges this fact in glee. This annoys the spirit as it flares up in anger and exclaims that the little bastard does not even show any gratitude. The young master ignores the spirit and sits across his desk with a cup in his hand while the spirit scoffs in frustration, and it states that it has an offer to make which sparks the curiosity of Leon, who asks about the offer. The spirit asks our hero to bet on something with his rage, and our hero's experience points on the line. If he loses, our hero receives his rage, but if he wins, he receives all his experience points. Sipping on his drink, Leon carefully gazes upon the message window as it displays the bet placed by the Spirit of Wrath. The condition is to pass as a top trainee for the training test, and the rewards and punishments follow. Leon questions if the bet has been placed upon the test that Lemmer has mentioned, and Wrath confirms, adding that he said he will choose only the top trainee. Leon's gaze falls upon a card labeled trade option, and upon questioning Wrath, tells him that he'll be given one of his traits, but the level will be decreased since he is inferior. Curious to know, another question is shot upon what is the rage, and Wrath answers to tell that he will take on the emotion of rage that he possesses. Smiling widely, Wrath elaborates that what he will get is next to nothing, but with enough of it, he won't be able to control himself and will go insane. Hearing such a statement, our hero realizes this is what Wrath is going for. And as he sips his tea, he adds that considering how he usually behaves, it does not seem like Wrath is lying. He has answered every question he has been asked honestly. Contemplating over the rewards of the bet, he remarks that it is not too bad, elaborating it to be a poisoned apple that he has to eat. But he considers it nevertheless, given that it will be difficult to get the top place if he was a normal ill child. But he remembers that he is reincarnated. Reaching forth his hand, Leon accepts Wrath's bet, making him smile widely as he remarks his choice to be wise. Blue flames flare around Leon's hand as the message window notifies that he has accepted Wrath's bet. He believes that if he utilizes his past life, he won't lose. At the break of dawn, heavy breathing and panting fill the air as students lay down on the ground, sweating profusely while trying to catch their breath. They express that they feel like their legs are going to break and they cannot even stand with all the running that they have done this early in the morning. Looking back at the training sessions, Limer explains the stance that he has asked the students to do, elaborating it to be a horse riding pose, which is every bit as silly as one can imagine. Despite him disagreeing with this claim, the students struggle to hold the position as they tremble and shake vigorously, while Lemmer continues to explain that this is the building block of martial arts. Recalling once more the struggle in horse riding pose, the students have now had enough as one of them yells up to exclaim that he's done with this BS and he now wishes to learn some actual swordsmanship from the head instructor. Another student adds to mention that they have done nothing except cycling between running and horse riding poses. Transitioning to Burn, he calls upon the fallen students to stand up and stop complaining as they are going to train their swordsmanship because it might get rusty if they don't focus on it too much. Wrath pops up beside Leon once again as they observe the group walking away to practice swordsmanship, and he asks if Leon is not going to go after them. But Leon walks away in the other direction as he answers that he does not need to train his swordsmanship right now because it's a waste of time for someone who's not even trained enough in the basics. Contemplating over his words, he adds that what he needs right now is not a sword, but physical strength as his body is weaker than others because of the bitter cold curse. He expresses that the basics are the most important, both for the sake of growth and for training. And he reminds himself that there is no need to feel rushed. And so, taking his own advice to focus on training his body for now, our hero sits in a plank as sweat falls over his face profusely. As he proceeds with his exercise, a mysterious fellow spies on him from among the shadows, and it is revealed to be Lunan from the vassal family, and she quietly observes him hiding behind the wall. She notices that he is improving fast as he lifts weights increasingly each day. She conflicts that she had heard of him to be ill, which does not seem to be the case, as she concludes that it is a given that you will improve if you try every day. But she wonders if increasing the weight every day is just nonsense. As she mentions of him lifting 10 kilograms more than he did at the beginning of the week, she wonders what the reason is behind him being so consistent when he is ill, speculating if it's because he has a different attitude when he's training. And she slowly walks up to him as she concludes that there is something peculiar about him. Our hero innocently wraps up the band around his palm when he notices Lunan approaching him, and he curiously asks why she is here. Glaring at each other, the atmosphere becomes tense as no one seems to break the ice and they just stare in silence. Lunan wonders what is making Leon grow so rapidly. Suddenly, she feels a cold breeze rush at her and her eyes widen as she stands still in a daze. Moving forward, she proceeds to sit beside him without warning and begins to lift the weights he has lifted. This strange act is looked upon in confusion by Leon, who does not understand what is going on. Annoyingly enough, Lunan follows him around the room and copies him by lifting different weights. While she does this strange act, she thinks to herself, it's not imagination. She elaborates that ever since she smelled that scent from Leon, the cool and pleasant scent, her body has felt lighter. She further explains that thanks to this strange phenomenon, she was able to lift a lot heavier than she usually can. The former assassin is curious to know what is making her act in a strange manner, so he calls upon her to ask if she has something to tell him, but she blatantly denies it. Not thinking much of it, he walks away silently while Lunan continues to walk after him, concluding that she might have to follow him around a bit more. Byrne enters the room with the other students as they observe Lunan following around Leon. There is no expression whatsoever on his face while the other students scoff and question why such a girl is following around a guy like him. He then grabs hold of a wooden stick as he claims that the bastard is just wasting his time and that kind of repetitive training has no point. He elaborates that Leon is weak, so he needs that kind of basic training. But Baron believes that even by doing something like that, he cannot reach the same level as them. Adding on to his assessment, he says that he does not know what the test will entail, but he expresses that in order to prepare, it's better to train in swordsmanship, at least for the sake of their own individual martial prowess. Calling upon his friends, he walks away as he asks them to ignore the bastard from the indirect lineage, and the results of the test will speak for themselves. While Leon is training, an unknown student walks up to him and calls his name. He introduces himself as Dorian and asks if he can train next to him and Lunan. The outsider contestant Dorian expresses that he wants to learn the correct posture, but Leon tells him that he really does not care. Shuffling around his bag, Dorian thanks Leon for letting him train next to him. As a token of appreciation, he hands him a cookie to try, but refusing to have the cookie, he proceeds to offer it to Lunan, who sits beside him. However, he is taken aback in nervousness when he sees her eyes sparkle in awe at the mysterious food item that lays before her. Handing over the cookie to Lunan, he confusingly expresses her to be another unique one in the party. Leaves flutter away into the sky, signifying the time that passes by in the blink of an eye, and our hero trains diligently, running on tracks, lifting weights, and making sure he does everything to be in the best shape possible. Others are also shown to be working hard and doing their best to prepare for the tests that might eventually decide their future. Leon now once again runs on the tracks as he pants and huffs for air. He narrates that it's been 6 months since they began training, adding that he ran every day until he was ready to die and the backs of those that he saw in front of him while running are no longer there. However, he elaborates that when he breathed out a shaky breath and looked up, there were only 2 people left in front of him. Moving on, he tells us that after all that, finally, the morning of the test day has come and families of the participants are seen walking into the arena as they anticipate their children's success. An announcer greets everyone gathered in the arena as his voice echoes through the large area. And he elaborates that the Guardians are all here to watch the event unfold. He also alerts them to follow his instructions carefully. And as Leon stands idly, Wrath appears before him to remind him of the bet that he had made all those months ago. And with a wide smile, he expresses that Leon was not able to surpass the 2 that are ahead of him. He warns him to be ready to take in his rage. But the young warrior is not fazed by the threatening words, and he shoots away the spirit of the demon lord as he expresses that this test is different, and they don't know for sure yet. Diverted towards Dorian, he then notices him laying down on the ground, and he asks what he is doing. Dorian has a look of despair on his face as he explains that he is nervous because of the test that is today, and he had not slept all night. Seeing him fall into despair and agitation, our hero steps forward to address the situation and comfort him when Lunan approaches him and offers him a cookie to try, which he refuses. Just then, he exchanges looks with Byrne, who passes by him, and he annoyingly acknowledges the odd people that surround him. Among the crowd, Sylvia excitedly calls for Helen to look at her young master as she exclaims in awe at the strong and confident warrior. Helen also adds that he has endured 6 whole months of hard training, and she acknowledges the 2 students around him as she expresses that he has made some friends too, which she elaborates is not surprising to him because of his warm personality. She goes on to express that the young master Leon has always been so thoughtful ever since he was young, and acknowledging that he has even made friends makes her feel proud of him too. Listening to Helen's strong words, Sylvia smiles in awe of her child when suddenly this heartfelt moment is disturbed by the sudden call for the Patriarch's entrance. Slowly stepping into the arena, the bright red attire and shiny blonde hair make a statement which intimidates the observing audience as they question his sudden appearance. Glenn Zygarde prepares to sit on his throne as the attendees bow down to him, and the audience expresses that he has never come to watch the test unfold before. The brilliant sword of the Zygarde family, Limer, also expresses concern as he asks about the Patriarch's sudden appearance. Acknowledging the questionable looks on the family's faces, Glenn states that this is an event that chooses the future of the family, and he questions why they act as if he shouldn't be here. Limer nervously then elaborates that it is not why he asked, and he expresses that the Patriarch is always welcome on the training grounds. Wasting no time, the elf then announces that since the Patriarch is already here, they will now quickly begin with the test, and he will now announce the details of this test. A green leaf falls to the ground, following the green aura that bursts out and falls upon the students that stand before Limer. The students are startled and taken aback as their eyes open wide at the sudden wave of strong aura that bursts right at them. Leon expresses this concern too, and Limer glares at the students with a menacing look while his green aura rushes forward. He elaborates that the students must make it through his aura. That is the test that they have to pass. Continuing with the test, Limer elaborates that aura is inherent to a martial artist, and this test will judge the student's worth as a martial artist. But before the students can begin the test, a commotion sparks up among the crowd of families, and a man stands up to question why this is a test when the students have just started learning. The small commotion turns into a situation when the man yells out that this is unfair because some of the students are yet to even learn aura. He exclaims that the head instructor had also been spotted sleeping during training too. Limer sighs at the unfortunate situation and explains it to the concerned families. The test is not just a manifestation of aura, but the real aura burst is the level of the soul that a martial artist achieves. He adds that this proves that a martial artist can manifest energy without aura. But the man that sparked the conversation does not seem to buy his explanation and raises concern once again. Suddenly, the Patriarch's voice remarks that the brilliant sword is not wrong. The man then acknowledges the Patriarch's glare as Glenn Zygarde explains that even if one individual has not learned aura, they possess their own aura burst based on the lives they have led. Limer gives a look of approval as the Patriarch further elaborates that depending on the intensity of the training, even someone without an aura can have a strong aura burst. Adhering to all the concerns, Limer now asks if all questions have been answered before exclaiming for the test to begin. He then calls forth Lunan, who slowly steps forward among the students to the head instructor. And now that she stands before him, he explains that the aura burst that he will test her with is of a level that she can endure if she has trained her hardest, and she will pass if she gets through his barrier to touch him. Once all the details have been made clear, the test now begins, and Limer smiles before a strong green aura rushes forth at her. Lunan blocks the wave of energy with her arms. The brilliant sword of the Zygarde family mentions that it will count as a fail if she uses her own aura and calls her to awaken the mental power she has trained. But the aura is strong and the wave of energy does not seem to stop. Lunan struggles, and slowly but surely she manages to take a step forward with her hand reaching out at the head instructor that stands before her. And before we know it, Lunan's hand grabs hold of Limer's hand, marking the end of the test. He grabs Lunan close to him as she slumps over him with exhaustion and remarks her passing the test is easy. Luna huffs and breathes heavily, trying to catch her breath while her head instructor commends her hard work, asking her to continue training like she has. Moving on with the next participant, Limer calls forth Dorian. And hearing his name from the instructor's mouth, he is perplexed and shaken up with fear. He questions what is the deciding order, as his body trembles, and Limer remarks that he decides whoever he wants to step forth. Nevertheless, he nervously steps forward, passing by the exhausted Lunan, who slumps over, still trying to catch her breath. Leaning over the slouched trainee, Limer asks him to do just exactly as Lunan has done, get through his aura burst using the mentality he has trained. But Dorian is skeptical. His voice mumbles, and he asks if that will work because he's best known for being weak-minded. Nothing stops the brilliant sword from testing a trainee to their absolute limit, and without a warning, his aura bursts out and flares violently while he remarks that if Dorian cannot endure, he will fail. Trying his best, he attempts to endure and plow through the strong burst of energy, but he struggles heavily and falls to the ground. This test is being observed by our hero, who notices that the head instructor's aura burst intensity differs from child to child. He elaborates that the instructor is controlling his intensity based on the child's level and training progress, which makes him now firmly believe that the brilliant sword of the Zygarde family really has been observing each and every student. As Liam assesses Limer's teaching skills, his attention now averts to him congratulating the fearful Dorian, who trembles but has finally grabbed hold of him while he is on the ground. Limer remarks that he has too little confidence in comparison to his skill level, and so he needs to believe in himself a bit more. Following the words of motivation, Dorian belches and pukes all over, contrary to the amazing show of strength he is portrayed by passing the test. Time flows like a river downstream, and one by one, the students are called upon by the head instructor for their test. Now comes Bern Sigurd's turn, who exclaims at his call and enthusiastically steps forth to face the test. Limer then walks up to the student and mentions that he will begin right away. A huge wave of green energy follows this elaboration as Limer hardens his facial expressions and glares down at the capable student that stands before him. Feeling the immense pressure and force of the aura burst, he is startled and agitated, questioning if this is what the others have been going through. He remarks that this is different from observing from the sidelines. He wonders how Lunan and the other students have endured such a difficult test, and he falls to the ground as he kneels to hold his own, exclaiming that he can't even move his feet. Seeing the student fall to his knees, Limer now begins to state that his talent is special more so than anyone, and there are only a few that are comparable to him. But he comments that he and the other children that followed him around have wasted their time training swordsmanship when they don't even know their true will. He also adds that they should have trained their mentality and physical strength instead of training the sword, and mentioning that Bern had used aura every time he was struggling. If he uses it again, this time Limer warns him that he will fail the test. Struggling to get through the energy wave, he grits his teeth in frustration. He cannot afford to fail this test here. Falling back into a flashback, we are told how his father looked at his brother on the day he kicked him out. He remembers the cold and cruel look in his father's eyes. He exclaims in fear he will also be abandoned if he does not get through this. This boost of adrenaline, backed up by fear and anxiety, pushes the student to rush forward in desperation. And finally, he grabs hold of Limer's leg, being called upon to pass the test. Burr, now exhausted, huffs and catches his breath while Limer remarks that he is only 12 and he should not pretend to be an adult, training only what he should train. Finishing his remarks on the test, Limer metaphorically elaborates that he is bound to trip on a stick if he continues to walk while looking up. Moving forward with the test, he now lastly calls upon our hero Leon Sigurd to step forward, and he obediently comes forth from among the students. Now standing before the head instructor, Leon dramatically makes his way to the final test to become a martial artist. And as the suspense builds up, Limer asks if the young trainee is ready, which is responded by a confident nod. And following the exchange of words, Limer remarks that he will begin. A roaring wave of energy now rushes forward through the battle arena at Leon, who stands readily in the face of the strongest aura burst that Limer has let out in the whole day. The strangely violent and roaring burst of aura surprises not only Sylvia, who jumps up in concern for her beloved son, but the Patriarch too, whose eyes widen as he questions the odd display of power that the student is now to face. Nervous to face the strongest aura burst, Leon asks the head instructor if this really is his test, and Limer responds by elaborating that the talent he had foresaw in the capable student was far above what he saw in Bern and Lunan. And so he exclaims for the student to try and endure the aura burst. Blocking the roaring wave of energy, our hero falls into contemplation. He remarks that his potential does not lie in his body, but inside his soul that once suffered a terrible end as an assassin. And while he acknowledges this fact, the wave of energy starts to cut through our hero's feet as he takes a step forward. The atmosphere starts to change, and the head instructor's eyes widen at the student enduring the most powerful aura burst. The Patriarch's glare locks onto his grandson too, as the brilliant sword startles at the sight of Leon's unbelievable talent, who continues to step closer and closer to his body. And before you know it, Leon Sigurd has pressed his palm against the head instructor's chest, who exclaims in denial that this really has happened. This amazing talent has the crowd of families in shock too, as their gasps sound and echo throughout the arena. Limer and the Patriarch widen their eyes in shock, and they are taken by surprise. But the brave young warrior smiles without a hint of exhaustion as he questions if the test is now over. The students too share the same sentiment of denial as they question how the once weak student managed to get through the most powerful display of aura burst today. Following the students, Bern's father and his messenger also jump up in their seats as their eyes widen in shock. Limer nervously walks up to the talented student, and the voices of the messenger echo through the arena as he questions how the ill child who hasn't even learned to manage to make it through such a difficult test. Limer blatantly stands before the student and now asks what he really is. Our hero Leon introduces himself once again, mentioning that the head has been observing him for the last 6 months. But Limer is still taken by surprise as he elaborates that he is asking because he has surpassed what he had thought of him. The head instructor also adds that the aura outburst was over the student's level, and he never thought that he would be able to make it through. He was just pranking him. Limer is in over his head as he continues to glare down at the young warrior, who now stands confidently before the head instructor. Limer's contemplation is suddenly broken down when he realizes his position and nervously announces to apologize for being a little distracted, marking the end of the test. Just as he proceeds to remark the top trainee for this test, Burn's anxiety spikes up as he nervously anticipates the announcement. The crowd was holding its breath in suspense of the results, but their anticipation is met with disappointment and shock when Limmer announces the top trainee of the 5th training hall to be none other than our young hero Leon Zygarde. The announcement sparks joy and tears fall down Sylvia's eyes as she exclaims and jumps up in her seat. Helen shares the same sentiment as she adds in the excitement, pointing out that the young master has done it again. A commotion rises from among the crowd since family representatives do not seem to be happy with the decision. They question Leon's position as the top trainee. Burn is not having it either, and he points his finger at Leon to elaborate that they are the martial artists of the Zygarde family and that they should duel to choose the top trainee rather than test for one. Limer assesses Burn's consistent emphasis on the unfair selection, and he comments that the boy is desperate to stand at the top. That startles the young master, who takes a step back to deny the claim. However, stating that the test is already over, he asks the Patriarch for help. And after taking a brief moment to think, Glenn Zygarde responds by calling out for his grandson. He remarks that the people do not seem to accept him as the top trainee despite the results. And so he asks if the current top trainee is willing to have a duel with the young master for the top spot. The response from Leon is met with a collectively loud and soundly gasp of shock as he openly denies the offer. He elaborates that the test is already over with the results that speak for themselves, and he is not interested in fighting in a duel when there is no reward at the end. Our hero moves his gaze at the young master, who always talked about honor and direct lineage, telling him that he's being a sore loser by standing in denial over the results of a fair test. Burn is startled, and he scoffs with frustration at Leon. Finding no other way to prove the new talent's capabilities, the Patriarch then suggests that he fights in a duel over the position of the top trainee, and if he wins, he will be rewarded with a bronze plaque. Leon is immediately alerted upon hearing of that condition, and reminds himself the bronze, silver, and gold plaque rewards are given to those who have accomplished something special in the family. He explains that these plaques can be used to claim certain valuable rewards in the future. He adds that even though the plaque he will be receiving is bronze, he is sure that he will be able to get pretty decent rewards with its help. So naturally, he accepts the offer while remarking that maybe Burn really wants the top spot. The Patriarch approves this decision and states that they will begin right away. Leon now stands before his opponent, who has a look of desperation on his face as the Patriarch adds that this duel will be the real decider of who is deserving of the top trainee title. He explains the details. There will be only one round, and the opponents are only allowed to use their bodies. The head instructor now affirms the duel and swings his hand, marking the beginning of the fight. Burn immediately rushes forward at his opponent, his arm reaching back to muster up a powerful punch. The fist flies next to Leon's face as his eyes widen at the sudden attack. This is followed up by an immediate kick to the face that is blocked by Leon as he hardens his facial expressions in light of the heated battle that unfolds in the arena. Burn now charges up his fist as blue energy spirals around his body. He calls it the righteous tiger fist that his father has taught him personally, since this move is a martial arts fist technique. The boy exclaims that he's not cheating in any capacity. The charged fist meets Leon's chest and he attempts to block the attack. The fight unfolds as the two students fight to prove themselves, and the other students cheer upon Burn's talented capabilities, remarking that Leon can't do anything against the young master. Amidst the fight, Burn gives it his all. He needs this victory more than anything. He glares down at the opponent he has always considered inferior, and his pride won't let him stand above him at any cost. He recalls his dark past, looking at the cruel treatment his father gave his brother as he asked him not to concern himself over such a weakling, one who has no place in their family. Afraid to disappoint his father like his brother, the boy feels incredibly desperate. Knowing that his father is watching over him, the scared Burn enrages, pushing himself even further in order to prove his worth. A barrage of punches faces our hero, as Burn tells himself that he cannot at any cost let someone like Leon keep him from falling behind and disappointing his father. Just as the punches flow through him and he attempts to dodge, the attacks appear to become slower and slower, almost as if they were being launched in slow motion. Leon now expresses that he can clearly see his opponent, his fists, his flow of attack, and where they are aimed. Burn notices his opponent lagging behind in thought and makes his move as he yells and rushes forward. Questioning if the weakling has finally decided to give up, leaping in midair, he prepares to strike Leon with a powerful punch. But our hero does not give up this easily. He also pulls back his fist to charge up a counterattack and glares fiercely at his opponent. The fist charges forward with a dramatic eruption, and Leon leaps forward to attack. His fist meets his opponent's, and a sparkle of energy is let out. Our hero wins this clash as his fist slips away, aiming directly for Burn's chest. Burn is taken aback when his attack is pushed back by Leon's strong punch. His eyes widen and he scoffs with frustration. He questions how this is possible. Looking back at the fist he charged up, continuing to rush forward to attack. Golden lightning sparks around Leon's body as he moves forward with a vicious gaze and charges up another powerful punch before striking Burn in the gut. Finally, the boy is blasted away upon impact as he groans in pain. The crowd lets out yet another resounding gasp, unable to believe that young Master Burn was defeated once again. Burn's father jumps up from his seat and grits his teeth in agitation as a man yells out that this is impossible. The Patriarch too is taken by surprise when his supposedly incompetent grant defeats the talented young master. The voice of the man from earlier exclaims that the move performed by Leon is in fact the righteous tiger's fist. Continuing the man's sentence, Burn questions our hero. His voice shakes and he trembles while attempting to get up from the ground, asking him how he was able to use his martial arts skill and standing confidently once again. Leon blatantly answers that Burns showed him how it was done and simply coked him in return. This boy never fails to surprise us, always defying his body's limits to accomplish the impossible. Shocking jumps and sound gasps unfold from among the crowd of families that spectate the duel that has taken place. And they question Leon's righteous tiger fist, asking how he is able to perform such a move without having learned any aura. Nervousness fills the arena as the surprised families begin to speculate that maybe the student had learned the skill in secret, which they believe is the only logical explanation. They still cannot seem to process our young hero's victory, as he grips his fist to massage away the slight pain. Limer stands before the victorious Leon, who is standing in front of the defeated Baron. The boy finally bows down in shame, accepting his defeat. Meanwhile, Limer has covered his gaping mouth with his hand to hide his astonishment at the shocking results. Assessing Leon's incredible show of intelligence, he elaborates that Leon countered Burn's attack by having him spin in the other direction. He mentions that just seeing the flow of one's opponent makes them worthy of being called a genius in the world of martial arts. Concluding his assessment, he explains that Leon used the flow to make his opponent's technique his own. Limer believes that this kind of talent easily sets someone on the path to being the strongest on the continent. And now that he has seen it for himself in Leon, he expresses that this is the kind of talent that the Patriarch had wanted, naming it to be perpetual talent. The duel has come to an end, and Limer announces to the audience that the results speak for themselves, concluding the test by deeming our hero victorious. Just as the test is called to be concluded, a woman rushes past the crowd of families and makes her way to the battlefield, her arms reaching forward for a hug. The charging woman is noticed by Leon, who recognizes her as his mom, Sylvia. Her eyes fill up with awe and joy as she firmly hugs her son in a beautiful moment. This concludes the martial arts training test, ending on a heartfelt moment as Sylvia sheds tears of joy, while Wrath annoyingly flares up and asks to go home quickly because he's hungry. Luden's passing of the test is also celebrated by her parents, who hug their child and cry tears of joy too, with her father holding her close and comforting her. Burn is also taken away by his father's messenger, who walks with him with a gloomy look on his face. Burn's eye catches his father from among the crowd, glaring down at him with a disappointing look on his face before turning away and mixing in between the crowd. The poor boy feels the weight of his father's disappointment as he slouches over and falls into deep despair. This concludes the day, and night falls upon the continent soon after. We see then Burn standing in front of his father's desk, who has his face turned away from his son. Silence fills the room as Burn continues to fall into a state of despair. But he is taken aback when Karan Zikart, the boy's father, suddenly calls his name with a heavy voice. It shakes the young warrior up, and he stutters as he responds to his call. Karan questions if the incompetent warrior remembers what he had been asked, and Burn states that his father had asked him to become the top trainee and not to lose to anyone. His voice shakes as he struggles to mutter the simplest of words in front of his intimidating father. The pressing father expresses that he had not asked much of his incompetent son, elaborating that he simply needed him to defeat Lunan and get the position of the top trainee. He then slowly turns his chair to face his son and immediately yells out in a furious rage, exclaiming that he lost to the son of an insect who has already lost all of her status. He questions if Burn had intended to shame his father from the beginning. He continues to confront his son, asking if he wants to end up like his brother as well. This alerts Burn, who is shaken up at the sudden mention of the same treatment as his brother. Concluding the confrontation, Karan Zigard expresses that his son has already lost his first chance, but there is still room for him to redeem himself. So he asked him to become the top trainee once again by the time of their graduation. Done with what he had to say, the father commands his disappointing son to leave his sights immediately. And of course, Burn obeys in shame and despair. Walking out of the annex under the pale moonlight, he wipes away the sadness and holds his head in his hand, expressing that he must not miss this last chance if he wants to live like someone of the direct lineage from the Zigart family. Concluding the declaration of confidence, he then smacks his fist against the wall in frustration, making it crack upon impact. I guess my dude is angry, but if you ask me, his father is just an ass. Burn continues to curse our innocent hero, Leon Zigart, exclaiming that it's all because of that damn bastard. He blames him for putting him in such a dire situation with his father. Sadly, walking with shame and regret, he wonders why he has been put in such a position when he had worked hard enough not to lose or fall behind anyone else. Walking mindlessly brings the young warrior in front of a mysterious building as he continues to hold his head in his hands, and he gazes upon the location he has brought himself, wondering why he is here. The realization then dawns upon him. He has come here out of habit, and he steps into the building as he looks around his surroundings. But then he questions his intent in coming to this place, wondering if he has come here because the test had just ended today. However, that does not seem plausible because there is no one else in the building except him. Wandering about the training hall, he picks up weights and begins to train, when suddenly his eyes fall upon the locker boxes beside him and he slowly walks up to them. His eyes set on one particular box, and that is today's top trainee, Leon Zikart's. He stands before the box marked with his name and he stops to look around for someone suspicious. He believes that just a peek won't hurt, elaborating that he is not stealing anything, which is enough for him to justify his suspicious behavior to himself. However, he is soon taken by surprise. His eyes open wide when he opens the drawer to find a bunch of used shoes. He is confused and wonders what all of this means. Elaborating that there are at least 10 pairs of shoes, he questions the fact that Leon has used up all of them in just 6 months when he himself had to change his shoes only twice. Picturing his opponent's training regime, he suddenly turns around to see an image of Leon training diligently as he lifts his weights non-stop. Looking over at this image, the realization finally dawns upon Burn. He recalls that Leon was always seen training. He then expresses remorse as he elaborates on Leon's consistent hard work, even when he pretended to be cool by swinging the sword and neglecting basic training, simply wasting his time by resting in the dormitories. He remarks that Leon's training discipline is the real Zigart way. He now finally realizes that he has always done the opposite of what he thought was the right way to represent his family. And as he glares down at our hero's worn-out shoes, the boy couldn't help but loathe himself. Suddenly, his weird actions click in his head, and he cautiously looks over at the training bench once again, only to find no one is sitting there. Accepting his mistakes, he puts Leon's shoes back in their place and makes his way out of the training hall. He is now changed and motivated, determined to change himself and make his family proud. Still holding a grudge against Leon's unexpected victory in the martial arts training test, Wrath expresses his frustration. He states that he has lived hundreds of lives, but he has never seen anyone like our young hero. He then confronts Leon and asks what exactly he is. But Leon stays uninterested in this interrogation, claiming that he does not know, and Wrath is free to imagine all he wants. Moving on, a message window appears in front of the young warrior, who now asks the spirit to tell him what the skill displayed on the window is. Wrath replies by acknowledging the skill is legendary senses, claiming that such a skill is unfit for someone like Leon. He then expresses that the skill expands the range of one's senses, although it is at a 1-star level, resulting in just a 10% increase. Wrath boasts that using this skill, he was able to tenfold his normal senses, and Leon seems amused by this statement. Moving on, Leon steps away from his bed as the spirit of the demon lord follows him around. Leon asks why the skill has this particular name, and Wrath explains that it's just a name he made up, believing that it sounds cool. Of course, Leon does not agree and expresses that Wrath has awful taste in naming things. This sparks a furious chant from the spirit of the demon lord, who yells out that the young warrior does not even have an artistic sense and he would not recognize uniqueness. Continuing with the story, some time has passed as the sun shines upon the annex. Our hero and Sylvia are taken by surprise when a voice notifies them that the Patriarch has summoned the young master. Sylvia is immediately filled with anxiety and persuasively questions if her son has done something wrong. However, the butler who delivered the message chuckles and asks her to calm herself because there is absolutely nothing to worry about. The butler then elaborates that the Patriarch just wants to give the bronze plaque reward to the young master himself. Following the summoning, Leon now bows before the Patriarch to greet him, who is sitting boldly upon his throne. While Leon continues to bow down, the Patriarch expresses that although he is not willing, he must keep his promise. He signals the butler to bring out the item, which is exactly what he does. The bronze plaque is now presented before our hero. As promised, Glenn Zigart announces that he bestows this bronze plaque upon his grandson Leon Zigart. He explains that if he is to return the plaque later on, he is to receive an item of the same value. Glaring down and thinking for a brief moment, Leon contemplates his options and says that he would like to ask for a reward right now. He mentions his mother, alerting the Patriarch, who did not expect her name to be mentioned in this sitting. Leon continues and asks his grandfather what he has to do in order for her to regain her position in the family. The Patriarch is immediately taken off guard, and the butler sighs in anticipation. Glenn wonders if his grandson wants to restore his mother's direct lineage title, and Leon affirms while he squints his eyes, expressing that the Patriarch's energy now feels a lot softer. Glenn then mentions that such a feat is possible if one manages to gain enough accomplishments for the family, but he emphasizes that it is not that simple. Explaining the matter, he adds that gaining others' acknowledgement in this matter is like picking the moon from the night sky. He expresses it to be a difficult task, especially for a kid like him. Leon carefully listens to his grandfather's words as he glares down at his bronze plaque. And after listening to what his grandfather had to say, Leon smiles and states that at least it's possible. He places the bronze plaque back into the butler's tray and thanks the Patriarch for his response. Our hero now makes his leave as he steps away, but he is immediately stopped by a call from the Patriarch. Just as he responds to the call, the Patriarch states that the young warrior has only asked a question which he would have answered even without the bronze plaque. This surprises the young warrior, who is taken back by the Patriarch's sudden change in tone. He remarks that he had never anticipated the Northern King of Annihilation to behave so softly. The King of Annihilation then proceeds to ask the young warrior about his proper reward. And firmly tightening his fists, Leon contemplates that there is indeed one thing that he desires the most right now. He reveals his wish and asks the Patriarch for a special training technique, which the king blatantly answers by saying that the instructors will teach him that during his basic training. However, Leon elaborates that he needs better aura training than what they teach at the training halls. So he asks the Patriarch to teach him a training technique equivalent in value to the bronze plaque. Back in our hero's mind, he expresses that the shadow technique he used in his past life is not enough to restore his mother's former title and to confront his worst enemy, Daruth. He will need a much stronger and better aura. Hearing his grandson's wish, the Patriarch mentions a training technique. An immediate flick of the finger reveals a door that opens into the hall as a bright light shines through. Unable to do anything but stand there in a daze, our young hero gazes upon the countless bookshelves that appear out of nowhere, surrounding him from all sides. Suddenly, he now stands next to tall bookshelves filled with countless books. He begins to speak, but the Patriarch sneaks through one of the bookshelves as he finishes his sentence. He tells the young warrior that these are a collection of a few books of the Zigart family and explains that if the young warrior places his hand in the middle, the book he wants the most will appear before him in the blink of an eye, acknowledging and understanding the instructions. Now Leon reaches forth his hand in nervousness. He expresses that he needs something better than the shadow training technique, hoping that something good will come out. While our hero reaches out his hand, the magic of the veil dramatically slides a book out of a bookshelf, and it suddenly appears before him, falling right into his hand. As the book falls into our hero's hands, he notices the worn-out panels and cover, making him question its origins. But seeing this particular book fall into the young warrior's hand, the Patriarch along with the butler are both taken by surprise. It seems as if the presence of this book has alerted them. The Patriarch immediately sits up from his throne in agitation and yells out to question why that particular book falls into his hands. But it is too late for him to do anything, as the book now appears before our hero and the pages begin to flip rapidly while he reaches out his hand to grab it. As he reaches for the book, he notices the title Thousand Flames Technique. He wonders in curiosity what kind of training technique this is. However, his excitement and curiosity soon turn into shock and despair. The book suddenly starts to flutter violently and a strong wave of energy bursts out in front of Leon. He takes a step back while his eyes stay locked onto the book. Golden energy bursts forth around Leon as pages fly out, roaring among the surroundings, while the Patriarch gracefully observes the situation unfold with an observant glare. Recalling past events, this is when we are told the backstory behind the Patriarch's cold motives. A man questions if he thinks that Sylvia is being ostracized by the family, but he does not pay heed to his daughter's concerns. He remarks that it's none of his business and his priority is to ensure the family's growth. The man reports that Sylvia had left the family with the man, but this does not spark any retaliation or remorse from the father, who coldly commands that such trivial matters must not be reported to him. Glenn now narrates his story, saying that in the past he believed emotions to be useless and only concerned himself with the power of the family that achieved him great transcendent martial prowess and the title of the most powerful family on the continent. However, he grieves while expressing that all he attained was nothing compared to what he had ultimately lost. Another flashback takes us back to when a messenger reports to the Patriarch about her daughter Sylvia and her husband being ambushed, which results in a look of despair and agony upon the Patriarch's face. The reporter adds that they were ambushed by Eden, who recognized the Patriarch's daughter. The daughter is fine, but the other two with them died on the scene. Glenn trembles in sadness and anger as he holds the report given to him by the messenger. He then narrates that it was such an unexpected ambush that the proper response was pathetic and painful. He elaborates that he had finally regained his emotions, but he adds that nothing can turn back time. Concluding his narration, he addresses Leon and his daughter Sylvia, stating that this time, even if they hate him, he will protect them no matter what. The energy bursts to diminish and disperse to reveal our hero, who appears to be confused. He looks over at his hands as he expresses that something odd is going on with his body, almost as if something is flowing into his head. Just then he is called upon by the Patriarch, who glares down at him. Leon stands in a daze, his eyes wide open with nervousness, while his grandfather asks him what he has done. Our hero blatantly expresses his concern, elaborating that he himself does not know. He explains that he only remembers the contents of the training technique. When the Patriarch asks him about the name of that technique, Leon briefly observes the strange new feeling of power that flows through his body before stating the name to be the Thousand Flames Technique. This is when a message window pops up notifying our hero that the Thousand Flames Technique has been saved in the memory. After the thunderous reveal of Leon's newfound technique, the Patriarch now confronts our hero to ask if he knows the contents of the book as well. And naturally, Leon affirms the statement. Glenn Zigart calmly sits back on his throne, acknowledging the young warrior's new talent and excusing him to leave since he has already received his reward for the bronze plaque. Leon obediently steps out of the hall as the door is closed behind him with a resounding thud, wearing a look of confusion as he leaves the annex. After the young warrior has left the hall, the butler turns to the Patriarch, skeptical of the training technique that the young master now possesses. But before the butler can finish raising his concerns, the Patriarch stops him in the middle. He narrates that the technique belongs to the first ever Zigart Patriarch, and he expresses that no one else in the entire family's history has ever been able to take the book into their possession, nor have they called forth the book inside the veil. The Patriarch now seems to be concerned for the safety of his daughter and the exceptionally talented grandson. While the butler shares the same sentiment as he warns him of possible dangers, Kalan asks him not to worry because no one else knows about the Thousand Flames technique. Our hero smiles as he walks out with a new and improved training technique. Meanwhile, the butler once again raises concerns about the book that has disappeared. But the Patriarch explains that it is fine because someone has now learned the technique that was conserved in the book. He adds that it wasn't a training technique anyway, expressing that the book would have rotted away among the huge collection of bookshelves if it were not for his grandson. He then sits on his throne, suggesting that now things might have to take a turn and change for a bit. His tone tells us that he is skeptical and alerted to the possible dangers that may arise. In contrast to the Patriarch's worries, our hero contemplates the strange new technique that he has been gifted with. While observing and assessing his new technique, a question arises. Why did the Patriarch gift him such a powerful technique? He elaborates that this technique is something that not even the gold plaque equals in value. Now positioning himself in a state of full concentration, he adds that such a technique does not lag behind the Ring of Fire, which is also a legend in the martial arts world. This is what makes it really worth learning. But achieving such goals is not supposed to be easy, which is evident when he sees himself approach a burning fire. He reaches his hand out to grab the fire, but to his surprise, the burning fire shifts position and moves away from his hand. Our hero now opens his eyes, acknowledging that he has failed again. He adds that he keeps trying to collect the aura, but fails each time, emphasizing the difficult nature of the technique of this level. He remarks that it was bound to not be so easy for him to learn. Abruptly voicing his opinion, Wrath now addresses the young warrior and states that things do not seem to be working out for him the way he wants them to. Still, he tells him to keep at it, explaining that it will not be pretty if anyone tries to touch him while he is in such a state, so he must be careful. He remarks that Leon has learned a really good technique and it would be a shame if he were to be disabled before mastering it. Working out what the spirit is scheming, Leon dives into deep contemplation over the facts as he concludes that maybe Wrath is right. Leon is deep in thought as he narrates and explains the Thousand Flames technique. He elaborates that it is a training technique that lets a person absorb the nature's energy to build aura inside their core. He adds that if the process is interrupted at the wrong moment, it might permanently damage the mana circuits or the mana core. He expresses that it is exceptionally dangerous for him because he already has the bitter cold curse in his mana circuits. Now addressing the spirit, he asks him not to interrupt the process if that much is acknowledged, but the spirit of the demon lord has a suspicious smile on his face. Leon now suddenly notices a hostile energy coming off of Wrath, and Wrath smiles wide, elaborating that he will only interrupt him once during his training. Our hero remarks that such a mistake will lead to the spirit having a damaged body too, which would be a loss for him, but Wrath does not seem to care and is quite persistent. He viciously smiles at his target, explaining that Leon would not be able to overcome the feeling because he is human. And he expresses that even if Leon's limbs are cut off or his energy core explodes, he can still bring him back. Wrath now reveals his evil scheme as he moves closer to the young warrior and expresses that when the target will have become unable to use his energy core and give everything up, that would be the best chance for him to strike. Shockingly, Leon is not bothered by the vile schemes of Wrath, and instead he agrees with Wrath to allow him to do it just once to see what it is that he can do. Wrath has now become cocky and confident that his plan will work, and he flies around the room with his blazing fire following him. He scoffs at Leon as he expresses that the young warrior should be living in fear because the Lord of the Demon Realm will strike him at any time. Assessing the scheming spirit, Leon now acknowledges Wrath as his enemy and concludes that the Demon Lord will take over his body the first chance he gets when the time comes. Thinking that the incarnation of rage, Wrath, would have stopped scheming because he did not try anything recently, Leon expresses that he was relieved. But now he has no choice left but to be alert again. This is followed by an exhausted sigh as he states that Wrath is someone to worry about later, and he now has to focus on more important things. Leon then walks up to the window of his room, and Wrath questions if he intends to do it now. Our hero confirms, stating that it's not a coincidence since the woman visits there every night. He now stares out his window. Wrath follows him around as well, and as they both peer out the window, they find a certain maid slouching by the riverside. Leon says that he will go and take care of the matter. The maid is revealed to be someone called Duel, and she profusely writes on a piece of paper as she states that she usually has nothing to report other than muttering. but she exclaims that today she has found something interesting. Judiel contemplates what she has to report, and she expresses that she never would have thought that the young master would get such a valuable training technique as a reward for just the bronze plaque. She adds that while observing Leon, the mana flow that she felt while he had been training his aura earlier was out of the ordinary. Continuing to write, she expresses that such information is definitely worth noting for the intermediate martial hall too. Now concluding the report, she folds up the paper in front of her as she tells herself that even if she has been ordered to do this, the victim is only a child, and she wonders how long she has to do this for. She places the folded paper upon the river that flows in front of her. The paper floats away on the water, and the maid takes a sigh of relief. But just then, a blade suddenly appears, pressed against her neck. She was just about to leave when suddenly she now faces this strange and mysterious anomaly. Nervousness takes over Judiel as she starts to sweat. The mysterious man stands behind her with a blade pressed against her throat and with a heavy voice filled with murderous intent. The man claims that if she moves or speaks, she will meet the face of death. The man commands Judiel to look down at the lake, and she obediently tilts her head forward, nervously wondering who it is. She questions who could possess such terrible bloodlust. Just as she gazes upon her reflection in the lake, her eyes fall upon the face of the mysterious man that threatens her, and she is taken by surprise when she finds out that the one with such bloodthirst is none other than our hero, which makes her wonder how the kid had managed to sneak up on her at all. Leon now confronts the spy. He moves closer to her ear as he states that he has felt a pair of eyes watching over him since the day he came back to the annex, and he asks if the spy had gotten the information that she wanted. This unmasking startles Judiel and takes her by surprise. She expresses it to be impossible as her eyes widen in shock, and she exclaims that she had thought she hid her presence perfectly. But then the realization dawned upon her that Leon was simply pretending to not know. Pressing the blade further against her neck, Leon threatens her once again and commands her to open her mouth. She hesitantly opens it, and our hero shoves some sort of mysterious ball deep into her throat. Judiel gags and belches as she swallows the strange thing and bends down to get a hold of herself. When Leon lets go of her and steps away into the lake, he picks up the letter she had been writing and opens it up to find nothing written on it. He realizes that he is not able to see the contents of the letter and speculates that he may need some special method to make the words visible again. Leon now exclaims that the correct answer is moonlight, and upon hearing that, there is a look of despair and desperation on Judiel's face as she glares at her vicious young master. Judiel's voice shakes and she trembles in confusion. She asks how Leon was able to know. But without answering her question, Leon now narrates the names of people from the Zigart family: Alice, Daniel, and Karun. Just narrating a few of the family members' names, our hero concludes the perpetrator to be Karun Zigart. He claims that this is Karen Zigart's doing, which makes Judiel lose the color on her face. Her eyes widen, and she grits her teeth in agitation. She deems it impossible for Leon to be able to know all this so easily when she is sure her face did not change when he recited the names. She adds that she has been trained to be a good spy, so there's no way he could have read the answer from just her face. But just then, the truth clicks in her mind. In a daze, she acknowledges the pain that burns through her body and Leon's unexpected ability to read her thoughts so easily. This compels her to believe that what she had swallowed earlier was none other than a rage worm, the very thought of which sends waves of horror in her body. Traveling back in time, a flashback takes us back to when Karen commanded Judiel to infiltrate the annex and report every single detail about Sylvia and Leon. Karun offers her a reward if she does well in this mission. He promises to make her wish come true whenever it may be. Now returning to the present, she confronts our hero and blatantly asks if he has fed her a rage worm. Leon is taken aback to see that the maid knows about it because that's not what he had expected. Judiel, however, has nothing she can do to reverse the effects now, but still she immediately belches and gags in an attempt to spit out the rage worm from her system. Tears fill up her eyes as she squeals and pants heavily. She expresses it to be the worst curse, one that lets others know about the emotions of the person that ate it. But the horror doesn't end there, since the life of the cursed individual can be taken away by the owner simply by wishing it. She also acknowledges Leon's reaction and concludes that he has definitely fed her a rage worm. Leon then states that sending a letter like this to Karen Zigart must mean that she is a spy of the intermediate martial hall. He raises his assumption that the plan must have begun around 7 months ago, probably at the time of the judgment ceremony. He then reads out the contents of the letter as he remarks it to be quite detailed, elaborating that Judiel has not only written information about him, but also about Sylvia, Helen, and all the other maids in the annex. Judiel is now cursing her past self for taking on this mission and thinking that it would have been easy since Sylvia had broken energy core and Mona circuits. She actually believed that she could have gotten this done easily. But as she assesses Leon's behavior and vicious intent, she concludes that the child that stands before her is not a child, but a monster instead. Judiel is now desperate for redemption and will do anything she can to get out of this mess. She yells out in desperation, claiming that she will change the contents of the letter and put something false inside it. But our hero is not buying this, and he states that there is no need since his information will be leaked to Karan eventually. He adds that such an act will just prove her to be unskilled, nothing else. He now crouches down to face the spy maid and glares into her eyes with a murderous intent. At the fierce and intimidating aura of the child, Judiel can do nothing but tremble. Leon tells her that from now on she is to become a double spy. He elaborates that she can give information to others that they will eventually find out anyway, but will be careful to leave out the important information. He then demands that she also bring him information that he wants, and Judiel hesitantly agrees as her voice shakes with fear. Concluding this confrontation, the young warrior now passes a warm smile and makes his leave, telling the spy maid that he hopes she has some useful information the next time he sees her. As our hero passes through the forest and makes his way back home, Wrath appears to ask the young warrior when he managed to summon a rage worm. But as expected of our hero, he elaborates that he would never do something so cruel. Instead, he had just fed her something that would cause extreme pain for a bit. This surprises Raph, who is amazed that the boy managed to gather all that information without the use of the rage worm. Leon explains that there are all kinds of methods to gain information, and even if others might not know of them, things are different for him. Raph is also taken back by this claim from the young master, and he recalls the spy maid calling him a monster. At this moment, the demon lord can't help but wonder if she was right. Moving forward with the story, Leon now narrates to tell us that he started focusing on training his aura. And soon enough, it was time for him to leave the annex for the training hall once again. He leaves the annex while Judiel nervously stands beside Sylvia, accompanying the young master's mother. He says that even after having put so much effort into his aura, he was still unable to make it on the day of departure. Appearing at the training hall, Leon now observes the small number of trainees standing before him on the battleground and notices that only about 42 people have passed the test to make it here. He recalls Limer's words, who had said that only a quarter of the trainee will be left behind. He also remarks that Limer is really precise about these kinds of things, when suddenly a voice calls out his name. He turns his head to find Lunan trying to approach him. The girl steps forward to turn and face Leon while he nervously stands in front of her. This is when some context is dropped. A few days earlier at the Sun family residence, a voice calls Lunan to question her if Master Leon had helped with her training. She agrees to answer the question while she munches down on her favorite snack, cookies. Her mother sits across from her on the table and asks her if she had thanked him for it. Lunan answers that she did when she received the cookie from him, but this is not what her mother is asking. She repeats the question and once again asks if Lunan had thanked Leon for helping her with her training. The girl then answers and says that she didn't. This confuses her mother as she questions why that is the case. Lunan exclaims and answers that her father had said to never talk to a guy first. Hearing this, Lunan's mother passes a wide smile as she now begins to confront her daughter. She explains that gender doesn't matter when someone expresses gratitude and tells Lunan that when she receives help, she should always say thanks in return. As her mother's words echo through her mind, we are finally brought back to the present. Lunan now thanks Leon, which is responded to by a confused and nervous affirmation. The boy nervously steps away in confusion as Wrath appears before him, questioning what is up with the girl. Leon responds that he does not know either. Watching Lunan leave, a voice suddenly calls upon him and he turns his head to see who it is. Dorian breathes heavily and attempts to catch his breath as if he has just come after running a marathon. After asking how the young master is doing, he exclaims that he thought he was going to die because he was a provisional trainee. Dorian goes over how hard it has been for him to qualify as an actual trainee, which even gave him nightmares and took away his sleep. But Leon is fed up with this long rant as he spews out all the words from his other ear after listening from the first. Dorian expresses that he's glad that Leon is the top trainee, and he was about to say something mean about Byrne when suddenly Byrne walks up behind him, taking him by surprise. He glares down at Dorian with vicious intent, and Dorian immediately squeals in fear before falling to the ground. But Byrne walks past Dorian and steps forward to face our hero. And there is a moment of brief silence between the two as they stare at each other, until Byrne suddenly bends down and bows in front of Leon. He apologizes and admits that he behaved pathetically a week ago at the training hall tests. And he also states that he acknowledges his defeat in the duel that they had. But that's not all he had to say. He remarks that he has not given up yet and exclaims that he will keep on trying hard so that he can surpass him in the future. Saying this, Byrne then takes off, leaving our hero standing there in a daze. Observing Byrne's sudden change in behavior, he assesses that a 13-year-old child admitting his wrongs is unexpected. But then again, a renowned family isn't renowned for no reason. They usually tend to have the class to back it up. This sparks up rage and fury in Wrath, who flares up at the bastard who got beat up badly, but still does not know his place. He exclaims that he is going to go and poke out his eye, but Leon asks Wrath to calm down because it was pretty impressive for a kid. Wrath does not seem to cool down though. He says that he does not care for it to be impressive. That's when Limmer calls out to the students apologizing for his late arrival. He explains that he had a lot to drink last night, so he had to sleep in. Rather enthusiastically, he asks if all the students had a nice break. Now continuing with the training, Limer once again stands on stage in front of the students, congratulating them on becoming official trainees. But then he alerts the students that the real training begins from today. He adds that the basic routine is to be the same, but quite a few regimes would be added to it as well. Leon carefully listens over the directions of the head instructor when suddenly a loud bang diverts the attention of the students, who turn their heads around to witness the commotion. A voice calls out and announces that the first part of training is a training. A girl is revealed to be standing before the gate to the training hall, as she curses and remarks that the door gave her a hard time. Dorian exclaims in horror and shock after recognizing the girl, and Limer greets her as she steps up, mentioning her to be a failed trainee from last year. Limer continues and tells the students that they have to continue training with her from now on, introducing her to be Martha Zigard of the direct lineage. Martha glares down at the students, and Limmer notices the vicious look. So he attempts to lighten the mood as he comforts the students that she's kinder than she looks. However, Limer is cut off and Martha takes over. She stands in between to question who the top trainee among the new students is, and everyone immediately turns their heads around at Leon. Solidifying her animosity, Martha elaborates that she hates having someone who is worse than her, but stands at a higher position. She exclaims that she needs to check who the top trainee is and calls out to challenge the student to a fight. Enthusiastically anticipating a brawl, Martha calls out to our hero. She really wants to test out who the top trainee really is. Skeptical of the sudden challenge, Leon nervously wonders what it is up with his luck, and why does he keep getting involved with weird people? Nevertheless, he steps out among the students and announces that he is the top trainee, and Martha gazes upon the young trainee with a smirk on her face. She exclaims in arrogance that someone like him does not seem fitting to be the top trainee. But she moves on and proceeds to crack her knuckles, asking him to start with the duel right away. However, just when the fight is about to begin, Byrne interrupts and calls out to her, commenting that her behavior is not very dignified. Martha takes offense at such a claim and growls in anger, questioning what the bastard has just said to her. She then walks up to Byrne, glaring into his eyes as she threatens that he better watch his mouth or he might end up dead. She elaborates that he must learn to choose his words wisely the next time he speaks to her, but Byrne persists, saying that Leon proved himself to be the top trainee in front of the Patriarch and the head instructor. He questions if she intends to deny that, but she exclaims that the one accusing her of such blasphemy also stood up to deny the fact before her. She justifies her actions, saying that it is why she is doing this too. Byrne now has a changed heart, and he expresses that he does not want anyone else to be as pathetic as he was back then. Observing this change of behavior, Leon remarks that the guy really has changed. Before things escalate further, Lunan has suddenly appeared before Leon, standing in between him and Martha, and she extends her arms as she asks Martha to go away. Everyone is surprised by this, and Martha scoffs, stating it to be quite funny. She mentions the great love that the trainee have for themselves, but she hysterically questions if they are backing him up as his minions. Accepting that there is no point in pressing the matter further, she now walks away, stating that she will be labeled as the stupid one if she keeps on pushing. She decides to honor the public opinion and move away. But before you know it, a vicious smile appears on her face. And in the blink of an eye, she now appears in the sky, approaching our hero as she states that she hates cowards who hide behind others even more than arrogant bastards. Lunan and Byrne are taken by surprise at such lightning speed, and they immediately turn their heads in concern. But Martha charges forward with her fist clenched, exclaiming that she will beat up the coward as she pleases. This does not prove to work, and Martha is easily handled by Leon, who dodges her fist and smacks her down. It's clear from her face that she cannot make sense of what's happening, wondering how her punch did not land. Just as she looks up to locate her target, her eye glances upon a fist that charges right at her. The punch connects, and Martha is blown away with the attack as she slides across the ground. Byrne is startled, and Limmer calmly observes the commotion with a smile on his face. Martha's eyes now open wide with her mouth agape as she attempts to make sense of what had just happened. She is left speechless, and after a brief moment when the realization of failure dawns upon her, she scoffs, letting her anger quickly take over her body. Now enraged, she yells out to question what the hell has happened. Dark aura surrounds her body as she slowly steps forward, crushing and cracking the ground below her feet with each step she takes. She calls upon her hero and raises her fist as she states that he will not be walking home today. But before things proceed any further, her fist is caught by the head instructor as he states that the both of them have greeted each other enough. Martha is taken back by the sudden appearance of the head instructor as she wonders when he appeared before her to grab her fist. Noticing this skeptical look, Limer questions why these guys are underestimating him a bit, and he elaborates that even if he's not as scary as the other instructors or family heads, he expresses that it's a bit upsetting to be treated like he doesn't exist. He addresses Martha as he mentions that Leon has not even started learning it yet, and he asks her if she doesn't think that she would be winning by cheating if she fights him now. Annoyed by Limer's remarks and ongoing rant, she smacks away his hand to release herself from his grip, and Limer states that she can fight the young warrior once he has learned aura. She adds that she was going to stop anyway. The head instructor then commands the young trainee to head over to his spot too, and he obeys. Martha also walks away with a frustrated look on her face. Wrath does not seem to be too happy with this conclusion to the brawl as he flares up in rage and he questions Leon's actions. He asks if he is not going to punish the woman who tried to punch him, exclaiming that he wouldn't be satisfied even if he were to rip off her limbs and lock her up in a glacier. Jeez, that's a bit harsh. Our hero expresses that he did manage to land a punch though, but this is still not enough for the spirit of the demon lord as he claims that her skull must be crushed. But with a calm mind, Leon states that now is not the time. He walks as he plans and speculates that it's much better to bet over the top training spot when he has something better he can take from her. Wrath observes him, and he wonders what the young warrior is planning. Following the other students, they walk into the training hall after Lemmer, and he asks Wrath to wait because he will get his revenge later. The sun falls as time passes by, and upon the scene of the setting sun, the students stand in lines as they perform multiple stances, and that is when Lemmer announces a 10-minute break. The focus now shifts over to Burn, who takes a sip of his water to rehydrate and recover. He then looks over at his hands to contemplate his success, and he elaborates that it's not easy. He adds that it was not hard for him up until the second level, but he raises concern for the third level because of the advanced principles that are mixed in the training regime. Now turning his head, he looks over at our hero as he observes him and concludes that even though he started from scratch, he was able to learn the training regime in just a month. Comparing himself to our hero, he elaborates that it took him a month just to learn the 7 foreign fists. And he worries that at this rate, Leon will be able to move on to swordsmanship training at the same time as him. His attention is diverted by the constant clattering of wooden swords upon the targets, and he turns his head and observes that it's not only him who feels rushed. He notices it to be Martha Ziegart, who trains diligently without taking the break while everyone else rests. Now breathing heavily and catching her breath, Martha takes a brief moment to reflect upon her progress as she compares it with Leon's. She mentions that this must be his first time learning fist techniques, which confuses her as she questions how he can improve so quickly. She adds that it's not like he knows the fist techniques already like Pern and Lumen. Still, she expresses that even with the bitter cold curse, his body is not in a normal state, which raises the question, how is he able to train all day? Worrisome and frustrated, she grits her teeth and expresses agitation as she exclaims that she cannot fall behind. Now for a quick backstory, we are told that she has always been referred to as the horrible talent because she had fallen behind everyone else in her year. And she narrates her story. She was always the chaser ever since she was adopted by the Ziegart family. She surpassed all the other kids who were arrogant and boasted about their direct or indirect lineage title and who called themselves geniuses. Martha laughed at their despair. She believed herself to be a genius, claiming that she always has been better than the others. However, her complex and anxiousness has gotten to the point where she can hardly deal with it. Later in the day, Martha walks forward into her annex as a servant greets her and commends her good work. But the girl does not pay heed to the servant as she passed next to him. The man observes the anxious miss and he calls out to tell her that there is no need to feel rushed or hurried. This surprises her as she stops in her way and she turns around to face the man. She asks the man about such a claim and he elaborates that the young master Leon has been surprising a lot of people lately. However, he remarks that he will never be able to win against her. This grabs Martha's attention, so she asks the servant what makes him think that. This is when he explains that the young master has a critical weakness, something that he can never overcome. The scene then switches and a wooden sword clatters and squishes in the air as our hero performs different moves and practices his swordsmanship. He sighs and briefly catches his breath when a group of 2 students walk up to him as he trains and one of them begins to ask him something about their posture. He wants Leon to look at their posture, but chickens out at the last second and steps back without asking the question. The student that accompanies him expresses frustration as he states that Leon's swordsmanship is just too good. An applause echoes through the training hall as Martha approaches our hero and commends his training. She states that she did not expect him to be training alongside her in such a short period of time, and she remarks that he learns fast. However, she also points out his bad mana sensitivity, exclaiming that it's pointless when all this hard work will amount to nothing. Silence fills the room as the students quietly observe Martha dropping the harsh words upon Leon. She mentions that at this rate, he will at least be able to become a swordsmanship instructor. Limer also stands beside the students as he observes the commotion quietly. This silence does not go unnoticed by Martha as she leaves, and she concludes she had expected for no one to speak up. She elaborates that no one would have thought that the idiot will still not have mastered aura even after 4 months. We return back to the night when the butler addresses his concern with our hero to Martha. He adds that the young master has 0 talent when it comes to aura, elaborating that since this was before she was adopted, she wouldn't have known. Then he goes on to tell that upon the judgment ceremony, the young master Leon's mana sensitivity was the lowest it could ever be. He exclaims that the only person yet to learn aura in the 5th training hall is the young master Leon. Further elaborating, he states that the bronze plaque that he received will only get him a training technique that's intermediate or something, just a bit above average. The man continues to state that considering that the young master has not yet mastered a training technique, He presses that he's sure that Leon's judgment ceremony results are correct. He concludes that though the young master may be the best in swordsmanship and combat, he cannot handle aura very well. This information lights up Martha's face as she widely smiles before bursting out in joy and laughter. And the man finishes his assessment as he states that the young master can never become a proper martial artist. Back in the present, Martha arrogantly plays with her hair as she expresses that she's still mad that she lost to that halfling. But she adds that he wasn't someone that she needed to concern herself with in the first place. Just as she dwells in her own thoughts, her attention is diverted and she is alerted when she notices Lunan standing beside her. Confused and curious, she asks if Lunan has something to say to her. Lunan blatantly speaks and asks Martha to go. This surprises her as she scoffs and questions if this was all she had to say, but Lunan presses further and asks her to leave to save some face. Martha plays it off by signaling to go away. But before she leaves, she boasts that she just needs to attend an advanced lesson meant just for direct bloodlines. Lunan observes her quietly as the brash girl takes her leave. Night falls and inside the training hall, our hero sits across the training sets as he refreshes and concludes his training for today. He looks over at his hands and expresses that it's fun. Before he recalls on his past life and states that on the battlefield, he learned not martial arts but survival tactics and how to kill. The only thing that improved were his assassination skills. He expresses that at the time he could not even imagine trying to learn something new. However, Navi exclaims that he enjoys learning martial arts and expresses that he did not know how fun it would be, adding that he loves to learn the art to improve himself. Wrath then suddenly appears before him and flares up violently as he yells out and asks our hero if he finally gets it, elaborating and questioning why he didn't do anything when he was being insulted. But Leon is just confused at this weird barrage of belittlement. The spirit of the Lord of the Demon Realms then elaborates that the black-haired girl kept on muttering things about him. Leon is surprised to know of such information and explains that he did not hear her say anything because he was too focused. Wrath then comments that Leon needs to care more, exclaiming that he would have frozen her on the spot if she were to say those kinds of things about him. But Leon states that as he is told before, there is no benefit to fighting her now. He steps up to leave as he adds that even without the Thousand Flames technique, he can beat someone like her easily. Leon slides the door in front of him to leave just as he says this when suddenly he finds Lunan standing before him as the door opens. This comes as a surprise and he asks why she is here. She holds a box in her hands and before she speaks anything, she reaches in and takes out a cookie. The girl offers the cookie to our hero as she asks him to eat, and he observes the cookie to conclude that it is strangely cool. Lunan notices his skeptical nature and presses that he eats the cookie. Leon feels taken back by her insistence and proceeds to put the treat in his mouth. He expresses that as an assassin he has learned not to eat whatever someone gives them, but he remarks that he trusts Lunan to not give him something bad. Just as he swallows the cookie down his throat, his eyes widen in shock and wrath appears before him, exclaiming that he has never tasted something so sweet in his demon realm, and he adds that the coldness makes it even better. He is curious to know what it's made of. Wrath swirls around Leon in joy, asking for more of this good stuff. Meanwhile, Luna asks him how he feels about the cookie, and Leon nervously states that it's good. Before leaving, our boy startled. The girl cutly states that it was made out of marbled ice. Leon jumps up to stop her from leaving as Wrath presses and desperately asks her to give him more. All their attempts are futile and Luna leaves without turning back. Leon stands there in a daze observing her figure from behind. Wrath remarks her to be an odd human while our hero wonders if she was worried for him. He then contemplates her character, stating that she has a sweet tooth like a child and recalls that there would have been 4 in the box that she held, which means she specifically saved one for him. She didn't really have to, but the girl gave away something to him which she really liked. Now leaving for his home, he walks towards the annex while stating that he should repay her in some way. And Wrath immediately pops up to ask him if the girl can give him more of that marbled ice cream. Announcing that he's back, our hero makes it to his home, and Sylvia immediately yells out at him in worry. She asks what took him so long and if he has had something to eat, but our hero simply responds that everything is fine. He now holds a letter in his hands as Judiel expresses that this is the letter that she will deliver to the Intermediate Martial Hall. Leon questions what they had to say, and she nervously answers that it was nothing much before stating that they ordered her to look into things more deeply, because he had mastered his combat and swordsmanship so fast, but she expresses that they have lost interest in him because he has not been able to learn the use of aura. Continuing with the conversation, he asks her what she has to say about his mother, and Judiel explains that people seem to have lost their interest in Sylvia as well. Judiel adds that at this rate, they will pull her back from her spy duties, which Leon doesn't like. After all, there's a lot more information he'd like to gain from her. Voicing her concern, Judiel nervously mutters and asks Leon if it may be on purpose that he has not learned it yet. Not willing to reveal anything to a double spy, Leon asks the maid what she thinks. Of course, that startles the spy maid as she stutters and nervously apologizes for asking such a rude question. Concluding the conversation, he then excuses the spy maid. And after she leaves, Wrath appears before him as he repeats that someone would actually think that he is not learning how to use aura on purpose. Our hero explains that it's smart to utilize the situation and atmosphere to one's benefit. Wrath raises a question and curiosity about how the talented master is having a hard time learning something so simple. He exclaims that it's something unimaginable to him, and the young warrior sighs that he does not know, asking him to come along as he goes to train. Wrath is enraged and taken aback at the mention of training once again. He thinks our hero is a monster who doesn't need sleep. Our hero is unbothered by his complaints, elaborating that training should make things easier for him. But before he can finish his sentence, just as he opens the door to leave for training, he is taken by surprise when he finds Limmer sitting peacefully in his garden playing with the birds around him. Leon calls out at the head instructor, and upon noticing our young hero, Limmer asks if he has had a good night's sleep. Confused and curious, Leon asks what he is doing here, and the man expresses that he has come here to tutor him. He pats him on the shoulder, telling him that he's here to teach him about his attribute. Tree leaves rustle and scatter upon the ground as footsteps trail across the forest floor. Our hero walks behind Limmer and asks him if this is what he meant by teaching him his attributes. They continue to hike along the hill as Limmer asks the young master to stop whining and just wait. He elaborates that he's a little lazy, but that shouldn't be mistaken for incompetence because he is an excellent teacher. Leon raises concern and questions how he's supposed to learn his attributes in a place like this. To answer, Limmer turns to his student and explains that he cannot forget the day he first saw his training technique. He describes it as if he were looking into flames so strong that they resembled magma. He mentions the boldness with which he tried to accept the coldness in his body instead of removing it from his mana circuits. He exclaims in anticipation of the possibility that our hero might actually manage to master this training technique. Now breaking out of his recollection of memory, he observes the student resting against a tree to catch his breath. He claims that this place should be suitable. Leon observes his surroundings and looks around to notice that they are in the middle of a forest, which makes him question if this really is the right place. He asks why they needed to come all the way over here. But before he gets a chance to gather himself, Limmer throws a strong wave of aura burst at the student without warning. This takes him by surprise, and the instructor explains that he wanted to create a blade of wind to protect his lord. He elaborates that what the student is feeling right now is the wind he has chosen. Our hero takes a step back to reflect upon the impact that the wind has brought. Limmer explains that he may have weakened the wind just to give him an example, but he is surprised to notice that the student is not surprised at all. Since Limmer is an elf, he explains that this is how he has always felt the wind, but Leon, on the other hand, is a human, and since his mana circuits are filled with cold, it will be much harder for him to feel the same wind. The instructor also mentions that there are many kinds of winds, naming them as warm, cold, and sharp. He elaborates that he wanted to create a blade of wind that could pierce through anything. And with his hand held up towards the sunlight, the elf exclaims that he has finally achieved it. Limmer then asks Leon to find out what kind of blade of wind is best for him, suggesting that he thinks of what kind of fire he wants to possess. Our hero, however, raises concern that they are in the middle of the forest right now, and there is no way that he can see proper flames without setting the whole forest on fire. The instructor also agrees, exclaiming that they will have their heads chopped off if they do. Stepping into a strange barn upon the hill, the instructor mentions that this place will be the best place for the student. They walk into the small hut as a mysterious man with a beard sits across a burning fire. Limmer greets the man, and the man expresses that he was just wondering why the flames were acting up before pointing out that it's because the elf is here, suggesting that his presence is killing the flames. Limmer smiles and expresses that the man's attempts were going to fail anyway, while our hero nervously questions why they are here in such a strange place. Answering the student's question, the instructor states that this is the place where a person can feel the hottest and the most passionate fires in all of the north. He exclaims and reveals the place to be an artisan's charcoal pit. The old man with the long beard notices someone accompanying the elf and asks what he has brought with him this time. Limmer remarks that the student is the grandson of the Patriarch, but the old man does not seem to be amused as he expresses that he is just an old man and he does not pay heed to anyone unless it's the Patriarch himself. Just as the old man is expressing his concerns, our hero finds his eyes fixated on something else. He notices the intense heat coming from the fire that burns in front of him, wondering if this is really a normal flame. He expresses that he has seen countless flames in his past life, started bonfires himself, and even witnessed advanced flame magic coming from the hands of a mage. But he emphasizes the impact of the fire burning right in front of him, and thinks back to the instructions given to him by the elf instructor earlier. He sees himself reaching for the fire that blazes in front of him, imaging its passionate heat in his mind and concluding that this is the fire that he wants to possess. But just before he can reach it, his daydream ends and he realizes that the old man has lessened the flames. This is when the man introduces himself as Valkan, which is a name that our hero has definitely recognized. He looks over at the man sitting across his table as he tells him he's not one to show manners, and if etiquette of what they're looking for, they can fuck off. Our hero would like to retort to that comment, but instead his eyes widen in shock as he recalls that this is the name of the artisan who is famous all over the world for his mastery. So he takes a step back to question if this man really is the Valkan he's thinking about. Recalling the tales, he remarks if the old man is the same person who supposedly created Glenn Zygarde's true heaven sword, but disappeared 30 years ago, he finds it hard to believe that such a legend would be found in a place like this. Without wasting any more time, he immediately bows down to greet the legend and introduces himself politely. Falcon observes that the young master recognizes him and he turns his gaze to Limmer, asking him if he had told the student anything about him. Of course, the elf denies immediately. Limmer then turns to our hero to explain that this old man is the Zygarde family's artisan, but has already retired a long time ago. He adds that it's been more than 10 years since he has been sitting here and stoking the flames. And since he has been doing this absolutely stupid thing for the past decade, the elf tells the man that this is probably the only place where Leon can truly picture the fire that he needs to trigger his aura. As the old man keeps fiddling his stick in the fire, Limmer asks him for the favor regarding Leon. Before he agrees, the artisan wonders why the elf does not take him to the blacksmith's workshops. Limmer then explains that there are too many eyes there and he does not think it would be a good idea for others to see the student's training technique when he has not yet mastered it. This confuses the artisan, who asks what the elf is trying to say. This is when Limmer finally mentions that his student is Sylvia's son, and as soon as he states this fact, the artisan turns around in shock. But before he has anything to say, Leon speaks up to apologize for the interruption, asking Valkan to let him just feel the flames if it's not a bother. Sizing up the boy with a kind look, the artisan explains that he is making charcoal, or to be more specific, he is creating golden charcoal, which can make much stronger flames than its white or black variants. In fact, this is precisely what he has been doing in this place for the past decade. And after explaining that, he gives his blessings to the young boy, telling him that he's free to hand around as long as he does not interrupt him. Hearing this, our hero immediately lights up in joy as he exclaims and thanks the legend. Limmer and Valkan now stand beside each other outside the cabin as the elf remarks that the artisan is really kind, but he also expresses that he did not think he would accept the boy's request so easily. Patting the legend on his back, the elf says that he will bring him some good liquor if he is good to the young student. But you see, he is taken by surprise when Valkan reveals that he didn't accept this request because of him. In fact, he elaborates that the flames in the furnace rose considerably when the child came inside, and they were so strong that his charcoal got destroyed from the sudden surge in heat. He adds that the child's breathing seems to possess the power to manipulate fire, and if that is really the case, the artisan can't help but have certain expectations from Leon. Or rather, he thinks that the child might actually be able to make his wishes come true. We open with our hero reminiscing over the 7 months he had spent visiting Vulcan's furnace as he elaborates on how he thought about the fire he wanted to obtain. Now fully understanding himself and his goal, he expresses that contrary to popular belief, trained fire is more stable than any other element. Acknowledging the thousand flames technique that is also in the process of awakening, he recalls Limmer asking the young warrior to emphasize the fire he wants to obtain. Deep in thought, Rayon reflects upon his ambitions and goals. He wants to slay Daruth, save Sylvia, and make sure she keeps her direct lineage title. With all these ambitions and goals in mind, and with unwavering determination, he expresses all the attributes he wants his fire to have. Now, sitting across from the furnace fire, he contemplates and expresses the powerful effect that the seeping heat from the furnace brings. With strong will, he is dedicated to catching the fire of the energy that he feels. He now transcends and expresses himself to see an image of his mind clearly. He emphasizes that he needs to concentrate and focus more. But that is when suddenly he is startled by a strange blue flame that flickers and makes its way over him. The raspy and ominous voice of wrath takes over the confusion that Rayon expresses. The spirit of the Lord of the Demon Realm exclaims and questions if Rayon had forgotten the warning. The spirit would take over his mind and body the moment he was at his weakest. The moment appears to be exactly that, as wrath takes over Rayon's mind and the image that he sees himself in, and exclaims while asking the target to freeze. Startled and taken aback by the sudden attack, our hero struggles to break free from the grasp of the spirit. He contemplates and expresses that he has let his guard down at an untimely moment. Because the spirit had not tried anything lately, it led him to believe that it is on his side, which is far from the truth and is evident by such betrayal. Wrath appears to have fully taken over Leon's mind and the image that is portrayed before him. Bearing the effects of the takeover, Leon expresses discomfort and elaborates that it is getting hard to breathe and his body feels as if it is going to break into pieces. However, adding to the unfortunate circumstance, Leon expresses that he cannot move or stop the Thousand Flames technique unless he accepts the fate of death. He emphasizes that he needs to concentrate his aura somehow. Experiencing the daunting effects of the spirit slowly taking over his mind, Leon desperately realizes that he needs to think to survive. Despite his consciousness slowly fading away, the chilling cold crystallizes and crisps up over the body of our hero as he struggles to make it through. This attempt to break free is observed by the spirit of the demon. Wrath addresses the target with a vicious smile as he speaks, stating that such a sight of desperation is pitiful. He questions if Leon really thinks he can endure the mighty power of the Lord of the Demon Realm like before. He believes this attempt is pointless as he exclaims that our hero's body and soul are now in his grasp. The freezing cold and numbness finally catch up with Leon as he sees himself slowly drift away while his eyes begin to close. Sinking into despair, he hears the voice of the spirit echo through the atmosphere as he claims that his efforts are pointless, comparing him to the man working in the furnace. Wrath continues to boast about his inevitable victory as he expresses that he will aid the young warrior in his quest for revenge. Suddenly, Leon's eyes widen as he recalls the word furnace. He thanks the spirit for the hint as he attempts one last desperate struggle, believing that it's all for nothing and he will die if he does not try anything now. Explaining the realization that dawned upon him, he elaborates that instead of absorbing nature's mana, he must now absorb the mana from the furnace directly. Further emphasizing the much stronger and hotter fire, he makes his final move to take it all in. The fire rages violently as Wrath exclaims in confusion, asking what the bastard is doing. Bravely enough, Leon has succeeded in absorbing the mana directly from the furnace. He answers Wrath's question, elaborating that he is struggling. Valkan calmly sits across from the furnace as he absorbs nature's mana when suddenly the flames rise up violently and he is forced to back down. He questions what this is as he expresses that he has never seen the flames be this strong. This leads him to believe that something is happening at the other furnace. Scratching his curiosity as he turns his head, observing that Leon sits across the other furnace, he wonders why it is so cold on his side when the furnace rages up so violently. He walks up to him as he questions if the young man is okay. Valkan wonders why he is shivering vigorously. But before he can begin to approach the young man to offer his help, he is stopped by Limmer, who steps in between and raises his arms, signaling him to stop. Acknowledging his confusion, Limmer remarks that Valkan cannot be near him or touch him and he must be left alone. Upon justified confusion, Valkan exclaims that the young warrior might die if he is left alone like this. But Limmer is adamant and explains that our hero is in a spiritual state of complete selflessness and there is nothing they can do to help him. The elf also warns that the hero may cough up blood and die if he is interrupted. Holding their ground, Valkan now wonders if this is the same coldness that Limmer had previously talked about. Valkan worries for the young master as he questions if there is nothing they can do to help him, and Limmer blatantly denies as he exclaims that it is too dangerous. He expresses doubt and worry as he nervously addresses the young student and asks him not to die. On the other hand, in the apparent spiritual realm, the flames burn hotter than ever as Wrath screams in discomfort, exclaiming that there is no hope. But this is not like before. Our hero emphasizes that believing such a thing is bullshit as he has already faced a helpless death before. He recalls his previous meaningless life, expressing that he could not close his eyes till the very end. But this time, it's different. He claims that he will not make the same mistake twice. Meanwhile, Valkan expresses concern as the pressure and heat meter upon the furnace whistles and hisses violently. He remarks that at such a rate the furnace will blow as it cannot take the sudden surge in heat. Limmer observes and notices that the mana emerging from the furnace is coagulating at one point. He immediately realizes that the bright student is absorbing all of it. The intense clash comes to a conclusion as Leon yells out in fury and determination while Wrath screams in discomfort and denial. Our hero's hand reaches out desperately and firmly grasps onto the flame that appears before him. Following this brave act, a blast ensues and the tavern is blown up as a large smoke cloud fills the sky. The loud bang shatters the roof of the structure as the flames seep out roaringly. From among the smoke, Limmer and Valkan emerge fearfully as they yell out for our hero, asking if he is okay. Upon not getting a response, Limmer yells out, demanding the young warrior to answer before noticing our hero in a strange stance as glowing sparks surround him. Limmer steps forward to have a closer look and his eyes widen as he realizes the golden sparks emerge from the golden flames that roar around our hero. The system window appears before Leon, delivering that he has finally learned the Thousand Flames technique. A lily flower falls into his palms as the sparks diminish and the system window pops up once again, expressing that the bitter cold aura has reached 2 stars due to the strong cold rage. The flower also fades away into steam as our hero smiles and acknowledges the unexpected turn of events. He expresses that he will be able to bloom right away. Just as he contemplates the doubt he had been feeling over putting himself through so much, his eyes catch the attention of another system window that pops up before him. He turns to the window as it delivers the fortunate news of our hero's stats being increased as a reward for enduring the hardships put forth by rage in a situation of urgency. Leon is taken aback and confused by such a gracious reward. He can't believe he is being rewarded this much. What would have taken him years to achieve happened in just a moment. Contrary to the celebratory expression, Wrath expresses frustration and anger as he spirals around the room in a rage, exclaiming and questioning how our hero had been able to endure the situation, teasing and adding to the spirit's frustration. Leon remarks that he had told him to stop trying because it would not have worked in the first place. Though our hero puts up a brave smile in front of the spirit of the demon, He nervously eyes Wrath as he recalls that he did almost die this time around. He concludes that this makes it certain that Wrath is not his friend. Following the confrontation, Leon determines that he cannot let Wrath discover his secrets and weaknesses. Suddenly, he is called upon by Valkan. Turning his head toward the voice, Leon acknowledges Valkan's worrisome look and remarks that he is in fact okay. Valkan then questions if the young warrior has finally learned Aura. Leon exclaims in joy and thanks Valkan before affirming that he has learned Aura and apologizes for breaking down the furnace. To his surprise, Valkan is the least bothered by the furnace and brushes it aside, exclaiming that he can just make another one. However, before Valkan can finish his sentence, his attention is diverted to a sparkling object that catches his eye, and he turns to the furnace in curiosity. The young hero wonders what disrupts the blacksmith as Valkan steps forward toward the furnace and picks up a shovel before digging through the ashes. After some digging, Valkan gasps and exclaims when he finds the source of the sparkles to be golden charcoal. One glance at such beauty sets the blacksmith back all those years as he recalls the criticism and mocking words he had faced from the upcoming passengers and town members. Following the sudden reveal, Valkan expresses that our hero might just not be the only lucky one. He moves the shovel filled with golden charcoal forward at Leon, startling the young man before he proceeds to explain that such charcoal is stronger than white charcoal and lasts longer than black charcoal. He thanks our hero, exclaiming that he has now obtained what he had been trying to make for decades. Our hero is visibly startled and confused when the blacksmith strangely thanks him for seemingly nothing he had done intentionally. But Valkan elaborates and expresses that each time the young master trained here, the flames grew wilder and became enlivened, and the heat from that spread all over the place. Further explaining such a phenomenon, Valkan states that he is just a dunce who has done nothing but beat his hammer all his life before exclaiming that he can tell such a feat is only possible because of the young warrior. He then thanks our hero for making this possible before expressing that he wants to ask one simple question. What are our young hero's goals? Following up with the question and upon visible confusion from Leon, Valkan elaborates and asks Leon what kind of swordsman he wishes to be. Leon then expresses that he wants to be a swordsman who does not give up regardless of the situation or enemy he is faced with. Upon such an answer, Valkan is visibly confused, and he expresses that he did not expect such an answer from a young master. Nevertheless, Valkan goes on to state that the young warrior will be able to possess a sword in 3 to 5 years, and he asks him to come and find him when he possesses one, elaborating that he will save the golden charcoal for that day. Leon is curious to know if the blacksmith means to make him a sword before questioning if he hadn't retired. Valkan blatantly answers that people tend to go back on their word of retirement before concluding the interaction as he waves goodbye to our hero, asking him to stay alive until then. Leon and Valkan part ways as they walk separate paths. Looking over them is Limmer, who observes them carefully from atop a hill. Limmer nervously expresses that he had been wondering what would happen before exclaiming that the young master has a really good talent for making people worry about him. This is followed by a sudden turn as he addresses the Patriarch who stands behind him, asking if he is not right. Limmer hysterically pokes fun at the Patriarch, expressing that he would come here every day to watch over his grandson because he was worried for him. The elf remarks that he must be very relieved now, but the Patriarch denies this claim. Following the expression, Limmer begins to uncover that the young warrior's aura's quantity and purity are beyond insane. He is skeptical if such is because of the furnace's heat, and he remarks that the child is surely talented. Limmer's observation is cut off by the Patriarch, who steps in to express that such is not the case, and upon visible confusion on Limmer's face, he elaborates that the young master has managed to turn his hardships into advantages. Moving along to the 5th training hall, Lunan steps into the battleground with a box in her hands. Having a sad look on her face, she wonders when Leon is coming back. Recalling the harsh words of other students about Leon, Lunan saddens even more as she firmly grips the box and expresses that she wants to help him. She recalls that her mother told her to help those who helped her. Her sadness turns into joy as her eyes widen in shock upon taking a glance at the mysterious figure that walks through the training hall door. Our hero steps into the training hall, arguing with Wrath as the spirit springs up in frustration. He expresses that there is no need and he can try his best. Wrath is visibly angered and frustrated as he asks the competent rival to stop being too arrogant. Just as Leon walks across the battleground, he is stopped in his way when his eyes catch on to Lunan. He is confused at the sudden appearance as he turns over to the girl and she opens the box she holds in her hands, showing him the treats she has made for him. Lunan offers him the treats as she asks him to cheer up, and Leon joyfully accepts as he recalls the treats to be ice cream that she had previously offered him. Something strange takes Lunan by surprise just as she is offering him the treats, and her eyes widen in shock as she exclaims that the cool air and scent from Leon have turned much stronger and pleasant than before. He thanks her for the kind gesture. The moment the sugary treat touches his tongue, his blue companion appears on his shoulder, expressing utter delight at the taste and flavor of the cake. With the way his eyes pop out, one would assume he's in love with the ice cream because he starts to lose all self-control and begins yapping about how it's just as good as the first time he had it. So he immediately urges our hero to eat the 2 remaining pieces as well. Leon sees his blue friend's misbehavior and points out that Lunan decided to share the treats even though she really likes them too. So he tells him to calm down and stop being immature. After scolding the spirit, our MC closes the box of treats while Lunan is still holding it, and he thanks her again for it, admitting that it was really good too. However, the white-haired girl almost seems disappointed that he only had one of the sweet treats, and she just stares at his hand on top of the box before finally asking him if he doesn't want any more. However, the white-haired girl almost seems disappointed that he only had one of the sweet treats, and she just stares at his hand on top of the box before finally asking him if he doesn't want any more. Once again, our blonde hero assures her that one is enough for him, and he thanks her too. So with a very concerned look on her face, she asks him if he feels better now, but it appears that the question takes him off guard. Leon manages to shake the shock off his face and lets out a sigh while telling her that he feels much better. Of course, the caring girl is pleased to hear this, and she expresses her relief that she managed to cheer him up, and while she's smiling at him, her big purple eyes do the same too. Satisfied that she made him feel better, Lunan turns around to leave with her box of treats. And while she's walking away, our blonde hero stares at her with a smile etched on his face, thinking about what a mysterious kid she is. The scene shifts and we see the red-haired elf addressing Leon and the others while standing on a platform. He jokes about how it must have been boring for the students with all the training they've been doing lately. And so he decides to spark things up a bit by preparing something special for the next month. Since they've trained their basics and training techniques, he believes that it's about time they moved on to their energy cores and started training in that regard. But while he's saying all of this, the students don't seem to have any idea what energy cores are all about. Perplexed, they all start to murmur among themselves, wondering what on earth the elf is talking about. The instructor notices their confusion, so he smiles before revealing that they'll proceed with duels in a month. While the others seem unsure about the whole arrangement, a certain dark-haired girl seems to be excited by the prospects because the smile on her face is unusually wide. The red-haired elf continues addressing them and informs them that the results of the duels will affect their graduation status and that they would also be ranked accordingly. He's still talking and encouraging them to prepare thoroughly for the month ahead when he's interrupted by someone who raises his hand and simply tells him to wait. We finally get to see the person's face and find out that it's the dark-haired girl who was smiling earlier. With her hand still raised, she asks him what would happen to the students like her friend who are falling behind and haven't yet been able to create their aura. All the others turn to look at her in shock, and then the instructor informs her that he heard that her friend actually succeeded in the end. As it turns out, she wasn't aware. And with a surprised look, she faces Leon to confirm what the elf is saying. Realizing that he's not pulling her legs, another wide smile appears on Martha's face, because now she believes that there are finally opportunities. She reveals that she almost died of boredom because of how long the training went on. And as she walks closer to Leon, she reminds him of what she said before about how she doesn't listen to guys who are weaker than her. However, now that she knows he passed the training, she's starting to think that she's been patient with him for long enough. The blonde kid looks like he's already tired of listening to her, but he just stands there and stares at her with his red eyes. At this point, she's trying to get on his nerves on purpose because she starts suggesting that he must have struggled a lot because he's in a position that he's not qualified to be in. With this in mind, she tells him that she's going to teach him a lesson. But just when she's about to get even closer to him, someone places a hand in her way and tells her to back off. The blocker is none other than Burn, and reminds her that it hasn't even been a single day since Leon got his aura. He continues to scold her, pointing out that the duels are in a month and even questions her honor as a swordsman for wanting to confront the hero at this time. Of course, Martha gets offended by his sharp words, but she manages to keep her cool so she can calmly throw some shade at the young master. She places a hand on his shoulder and teases him for taking honor so seriously and suggests it's because he grew up so treasured. And then she gives him a reality check by informing him that where she comes from, honor is reserved for people who deserve it. Burn tries to hit back with some remarks of his own, but she doesn't give him the chance because she immediately starts walking away. And while she does, she points out how even the average students learned how to use aura within a month, and yet they're top-trained it took over 6 months to do the same. Martha goes on to explain that even advanced techniques take 7 months to learn on average. So if Leon is taking that long to learn only the basics, then it means that he isn't talented at all. At this point, Burn is pretty annoyed, but he can't say anything to defend our hero. So he just stands there speechlessly while Martha mocks him some more for being present during the judgment ceremony. It turns out that the reason for the humiliation is the fact that a swordsman who has not learned or can never become famous because there's no point in being talented if you can't master the basics. After lambasting our hero and Burn, Martha turns to the instructor to suggest that the reason he came up with the whole idea of duels is because he wants to change the top student at the moment. But upon receiving the mild accusation, the guilty-looking elf just feigns ignorance, claiming that he doesn't know, When the red-haired elf denies the allegation, Martha immediately turns to face Leon again and bluntly tells him that he's been the top student for too long, even though he doesn't deserve it. So, with this idea in her head, she tells him that it's time he stepped down from the position. Our hero doesn't say anything in response. So, once again, she challenges him to a duel, where the winner would become the new top student. But before she can finish talking, Leon cuts her off with a very loud and clear no. His response takes her by surprise, and she finds it hard to hide the look of disbelief on her face. Finally, our quiet hero decides to respond to the annoying girl, and he starts by asking her if she thinks she can gamble without having any money. And then he makes it clear to her that she has to offer something of equal value if she wants to bet on his position as top student. Even though she didn't expect him to defend his title, she taunts him some more to get on his nerves, reminding him that in his current situation, nobody around is on his side. Martha attempts to use her words to trick him into accepting her sham deal. But our boy cuts her off once more. And this time it really gets to her because he suddenly asks her if she's scared to put something of value on the line as well. You know when someone is so mad that they just smile at first instead of flipping out? Well, that's what happens to Martha when she hears Leon ask her that question. With a creepy smile on her face, she asks him if he seriously just said that to her. And then in an instant she starts laughing hysterically, claiming that she finds the conversation very amusing. She eventually stops laughing like a maniac, and after catching her breath, she arrogantly tells our boy that she'll tolerate his question because she understands that he doesn't want to bet on nothing. Desperate to get him to accept her challenge, Martha reluctantly presents the Calamity Orb, which turns out to be the miracle medicine that her father gave her. This white ball in a box helps strengthen her body and aura, so clearly it has a lot of value to her. As the challenger, she waves the box in front of Leon's face, vowing to give it to him if he wins the duel. She asks him what he thinks about the offer, suggesting that it's not a bad prize to win. And in that brief moment when our boy is considering it, his blue companion Wrath pops out again to also have a look at the Calamity Orb. Our boy reminds the spirit about how he planned to wait for the perfect time to screw Martha over, but Wrath doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. So of course Leon explains that there's something he wants to get from the mean girl. And with a knowing smirk on his face, he claims that this is their chance to do it because now is the perfect time. Unfortunately, we don't get to see what our genius hero planned right away because the scene shifts to a month later. And in this scene, we see the anxious challenger looking at her calendar because it's already been a month since she convinced our hero to accept her challenge. Martha is very excited about the duel, feeling that she finally has her chance to get payback on him. You see, Martha had never been hit in a fight by someone her age before coming to the training grounds, but Leon ended her streak with ease. And so after 8 months, she finally wants to pay him back for the shame he caused her back then. She continues to think deeply about how the fight could go, and she recalls that it's only been a month since he learned how to use aura, which makes her feel very confident that she'll win. After all, she's already trained in her art for more than 3 years, so a mere noob shouldn't even stand a chance. However, another thought suddenly flashes across her mind, and she starts to believe that it's also a waste of time to wait for someone as untalented as him. Martha reminds herself that she needs to get stronger, especially because there's someone she needs to save. And with this motivation, she declares that Leon Zekart is about to meet his end. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we see our boy chilling with Wrath, oblivious to the fact that Martha is seriously plotting her revenge on him. The scene shifts once again, and we see the instructor addressing the students concerning the duels. He starts by requesting their attention before talking about how watching a fight is usually as helpful as participating in one, so he advises them to watch closely how the other trainee fight against their opponents and urges them to think about how they would react in certain situations. The instructor appears to be very excited about the duels, but the same cannot be said for the students because they're all standing still like statues. Of course, he notices this and senses the tension, so he encourages them to shake off the nerves and just do their best. After the little pep talk, the red-haired elf reveals the matchup, which happens to be between Burn and the chubby Dorian. Hearing his name, the young blue-haired master acknowledges the call-up and immediately steps forward for the fight. But while he's bravely stepping up to the challenge, his opponent doesn't seem to share the same enthusiasm. In fact, a terrified kid with green hair, who happens to be Dorian, fearfully raises his hand to call the instructor's attention and timidly surrenders before the fight even begins. As you'd expect, Burn is instantly taken aback when he hears this, to the point that he's even dumbfounded. The instructor, on the other hand, manages to shake off the wave of shock and points out to Dorian that the fight hasn't even started. Determined to get out of fighting Burn in a duel, Dorian suddenly holds his tummy and begins wincing in pain, claiming that he doesn't feel so good and that he has been feeling weak since the previous day. The instructor just looks down at the green-haired kid, who's insisting that he's serious about his condition, but it's quite clear that he's faking it. As Dorian continues his display, Wrath looks at him with rage and irritation laced all over his face because he knows that if he had someone like that as his subordinate, he would probably decapitate him on the spot for being so pathetic. But surprisingly, Leon claims that he already expected something like this to happen. Meanwhile, the gentle instructor tries to convince Dorian to at least try by assuring him that he would learn something even if he loses the fight. I'm not sure how, but his pep talk actually works because the kid agrees to give it a try. However, what we see in the next scene shows us that Dorian quickly regrets his decision. It doesn't take long before the green-haired kid loses to Burn and collapses to the floor, so he immediately surrenders once again. After the fight, the concerned instructor tells Burn that he's still failing to control his emotions and points out that he could have defeated Dorian with only 5 moves if he had his feelings in check. The brooding kid defends himself by claiming that Dorian's reactions made him upset. Hearing this, the elf lets the matter go and faces the green-haired kid to ask him why he keeps running away, pointing out that he could have endured longer if only he fought properly. Unfortunately, all of the encouragement goes to waste because the kid just ignores him and keeps lying there like a loser while admitting that he's just too scared. After that display, the elf becomes excited again because he's about to announce the fighters for the next match. So with a wide smile on his face, he calls out Luna and Crane to come forward. Unlike the previous matchup, these two trainees are in it to win it, and just by looking at Crane's stern expression when they take the stage, you can tell just how serious he is. Luna doesn't look so desperate to win though. In fact, she looks like she's bored. The two fighters take their battle stance, so the instructor starts the duel without any further delay. As soon as the fight starts, Crane charges at Lunan, attempting to quickly land a lethal hit. But even with how aggressive his attack is, the white-haired girl sees it coming and just effortlessly deflects it with her sword. Sure enough, Crane is shocked to see this, and as his weapon gets knocked out of his hand and lodged into the ground, the instructor stops the duel. He then tells Crane that he's way too nervous and explains that he needs to be more relaxed when wielding a sword. On the other hand, he tells Lunan that she didn't use aura enough, even though he admits that her counterattack was very good. After hearing what the instructor has to say, the two fighters acknowledge his advice and take note of it. The battles go on for a while, and among the sounds of the freshly clashing swords, the trainees start to comment that Martha must be getting really impatient for having to wait until the last turn. That's right, the duel between the black-haired girl and our blonde hero is finally in full swing. And it looked like Martha was having a real fun time in the fight. We see the look of pure confidence on her face as usual, and she's very excited as she clashes swords with our hero, who looks quite serious as well. I mean, this is a high-stakes match after all, so it's no surprise that both of them are dialed in. As the fight continues, Martha attempts to land devastating blows, but each time our boy deflects them, showing incredible agility and skill. And it doesn't take long before he turns defense into offense with a brilliant counterattack move that leaves the girl shocked. However, she manages to dodge the hit and then goes back to reassess the situation before her. Even though she's starting to get worried, she covers it up with her usual taunting facade. She tells Leon that she didn't think he could deflect her sword and finally admits that he's actually talented after all. Regardless, she believes that his talent is only in his swordsmanship, so she calls him a halfling whose aura isn't strong enough. And as such, she claims that he doesn't have a future. As usual, her words are just a distraction to allow her to land an attack. So while she's saying these mean things, she also prepares to go in for another attack. This time, it's much more powerful than the previous ones because she leaps into the air and generates an insane amount of momentum in a single swing, hoping to finish our hero off with the hit. However, to her surprise, Leon blocks the attack and continues to stand his ground. Even as she tries to force him down despite her surprise that our hero managed to block it, the girl taunts him, suggesting that he can't hold it much longer because aura depends a lot more on the talent of the user than their swordsmanship. Determined to throw him off his game, Martha tells him that someone like him who just barely managed to create aura can never be her match in a million years. She even threatens to crush his bones if he doesn't surrender. But before she can complete her threats, our boy deflects her attack and forces her back a few feet. At this point, the mean girl is stunned and Leon finally decides to use his words to fight back. So he points out how she keeps talking about talent and how the people in their family really love this word. Martha responds, suggesting it must be annoying for him to hear it all the time because he's not talented, which is also the reason she wants him to realize his actual place. Hearing this, our hero hits back at her, revealing that he's going to show her something as well. And this thing in question happens to be something way more important than simple talent. The moment Leon says this, his sword is instantly covered in flames. And upon seeing this, fear and anxiety grip the boastful challenger. Scared and confused, she stares at our boy as he reveals the 1,000 Flames technique. First flames, which he's going to use to teach her a lesson. Martha is stunned to see this and starts to wonder what the flames are and why they're on his sword. Even though she has no idea what made them, what she's sure of is the fact that those flames are by no means ordinary, and they are most certainly very dangerous. Despite her fear, she notices that there is a very strong intent behind Leon's flames, which makes it possible for them to feel so alive. Martha refuses to back down even if she's at a disadvantage. So she musters all the courage she can and grips her sword, preparing to go in for another round. In other words, She's going to reveal a powerful secret technique of her own as well. And while our hero's sword is covered in flames, Martha activates her technique called Meteor Form Ultimate Point. That's right, this duel just got more intense because Leon immediately realizes that Ultimate Point is a skill that allows her to collect all of her aura into a single point, and he's impressed that she can use such a skill at her age. Our boy also presumes that she's going to throw everything into her next attack, but he still remains calm and waits to see what exactly she's going to do. The two opponents face off once again, and Martha admits that our hero is strong, but she assures him that he won't be able to block the next attack she throws at him. Just like she did earlier, she lifts into the air and generates a lot of force, which she concentrates into her aura-infused sword attack. Leon watches closely with his eyes fixed on the girl while she's in the air. And so when she finally lands her most powerful attack yet, history repeats itself, and our hero blocks it just like he did the first time. You can tell just how power-packed this clash is just by looking at the air around the two fighters. It's filled with their aura, which is probably a result of the insanely powerful techniques they are using. The other trainee watching are probably scared at this point because the force from Martha's attack cracked the ground while also causing a huge dust cloud to emerge. They find it hard to see what's happening because of this, but when the dust clears, we see that the challenger's sword was broken in the clash, and on top of that, she's been knocked out cold, lying on the cracked floor. Upon seeing this, the other students can't believe their eyes because they never expected that Leon would defeat her. And they certainly didn't expect Martha to lose the fight she's been training so hard for. Either way, they notice something strange about our hero's aura as well and murmur about what it could be. Leon hears all of their comments, but like the quiet guy he is, he ultimately decides to ignore them without clearing anything up. He stands over his opponent's body while rubbing his wrist and just looks down at the girl, not sure of what to say at this point. Suddenly, he notices that even in Martha's unconscious state, her fist is still tightly wrapped around her sword. And seeing such resolve, Leon admits that in the end, the black-haired girl also has something far better than some flimsy talent or skill. This special quality that he believes she possesses is mental strength, and he seems to be very impressed by it. This story never disappoints with its progression, and I can't wait to see the look on Martha's face when she wakes up. Will she be able to reconcile with our hero and change her personality, or will she simply fall into a state of denial and make things even more awkward? Also, who is the person she's actually trying to save by aiming to get stronger?